resolution, black and white mind balloons floating up too colourful. Or is it separation you put into your coat and sand, waiting for the world to start again? Take a take. Is this how you're feeling? Falling with the world tonight, colorized and beautiful. Slide the line. Is this how you're healing? Out there in the paradigm, waiting for a cavalcade to come again. Take a take.
Hi everyone. Before we begin this event, we want to make sure that we are blessing the space. So I want to introduce Uncle Bill, who's the traditional owner of this area, and he's going to be doing a welcome to country. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to introduce myself actually in what I call the basis of culture. Now, you don't have to really have many people gather here in Nuddum Nuddum or Naarm or the English name Melbourne to know that there is we're a very multicultural society, and to me, culture. The basis of it is how we learn everything and how we express everything is through your language. Because we were the last colonial invaded country, the English were very good at breaking down Aboriginal culture of this area. So language was actually made banned in 1863 at a place that's actually on my shirt, Corranderk, where my grandmother was born. If you've never heard of Corranderk, it's in the beautiful Birrarung Valley, or what's now known as the Yarra Valley, in the modern town of Healesville. And I encourage people actually to, if you're interested in learning about the Wurundjeri story of this area, that's a good starting point. So, Wiminjika, Gamamallamangil, Balambudnyalambul, Warranjeri Balak, Nirina Magagil, Bill Nicholson, welcome. The word Wiminjika or Wominjika, actually, more and more people are getting to know about, especially if you walk into Melbourne Uni. There's a massive, great sign of it, like a massive one. It's not just a broad welcome to just welcome people to country. It's actually welcoming people for a purpose. And that purpose today is for me to, I guess, introduce this really deadly event here with music and so forth. But I guess that particular word, welcome, just keep in mind, because I'd actually like to thank the organisers of this afternoon's event for allowing me to do a welcome, because that's a great sign of respect. And just keep that in mind, because when people have gathered on this sacred land for thousands of years, there has been a formal welcome. What I said with the rest of the words was greetings, good day from the Wurundjeri people. My name is Uncle Bill Nicholson. Now, I stand here proudly, not just representing myself and immediate family, but also my community today, and a long line of people, ancestors, whichever word best suits your understanding. We've been here, some people say 10, 20, 30, 40,000 years. In our culture, we don't have numbers like that. Our culture basically says since the beginning of human consciousness, so either way, we've been here a long time. Thanks to the efforts of our elders past, who I'd like to acknowledge, their strength, resilience, their wisdom and leadership would not allow us to be here today. And if there's any Indigenous people here today, you would know exactly what I'm talking about, and I'd like to acknowledge you fellas as well. I'm just going to name a couple to make them real. A man named Simon Wonga. You might have heard of Wonga Park out in eastern Melbourne there. Simon was the son of esteemed leader, or what we call Nalingita, Billabulleri. Now, if you ever look at through the earliest history of Melbourne, or Naarm, or Nullum, I call him the funny name fella, John Batman. I'm not sure if you knew, but Melbourne was almost called Batmania, which would have been very interesting. But he met the Aborigines, as I was taught when I was young, and I found out that those Aborigines were my ancestors, and Billabulleri was the man in charge. That's Wonga's dad. Now, he taught Wonga that he had to adapt to the colonial invasion or his people would not survive. So Wonga fought very hard for the acquisition of land, and he set up Corranderk. His predecessor, William Barak, who's our more well-known elder of the past, he's actually, if you weren't aware, there's a building at the top end of Swanston Street there with his face on it. It's about 30 odd stories tall. You've got to get it on a sort of an angle and a certain elevation to see it. But that was designed to symbolise our esteemed elder looking down to his sacred river, the Birrarung or the Bardang or the Yarra River. So he's our first human rights advocate. And the list goes on. I've also got to acknowledge my nan, because in 1863, the government recorded only 18 Wurundjeri people, and our northern neighbours, the Tanarong or the Dunwarang, only 22. So Nan met an Irishman named Paddy and had 16 kids. So I've got to thank Nan for getting that population back, because we very much needed it. But on a serious note, she also was my first connection to actually who I was as an Aboriginal person, and I'd like to acknowledge her. I'd also like to acknowledge the Woiwurrung country, or the language that I spoke earlier, which is the language of Wurundjeri, also encompassed the Maribyrnong catchment as well. Unfortunately, and I always feel really sad saying this, all the family groups out that way are no longer with us, but I want to acknowledge them, because they were here and they cared for this land just like my ancestors did. Now, what I call the Birrarung dreaming, I guess. The word dreaming it's an Aboriginal it's an Aboriginal way of communicating our knowledge systems. It's kind of designed by anthropologists in the past. But I guess when I say the Birrarung dreaming, this is where we come from. This is where our connection began. Bunjil, our creator, gave us the land to care for, life to enjoy, and the laws to live by, creating a very efficient culture. The more and more I study my culture, the more and more I realise I'm working way too hard today. 2 to 6 hours a day to sustain your family. For example, a staple food like the yam daisy or the murnong, early Europeans were noted to say things like, as far as the eye can see, the yellow flower of the yam daisy or murnong. Now, to me, that's always said, this land provided so much food resources as far as the horizon, that, imagine working half the hours that you work today and earning the same income. What would you do with all that spare time? I call it weekend mode. You sort of get more into weekend mode in the modern world. A very family-structured society where every adult within society had the responsibility to look after the kids, and not just look after them, but to teach them knowledge based on their character. Knowledgeable, inclusive, healthy, and responsible. Just a message from my culture, actually, and I say this to everyone. When boys and girls were brought up on this land, as I said, they were taught knowledge based on their character, to be responsible for the health of country, because that related to their health. Let's all take our individual responsibility to this land, because for the first time in tens of thousands of years, it's crying out for our help more than ever. For example, there's more non-Indigenous species on this landscape called Australia than Indigenous, and that's a real red flashing light going off that we need to turn around. Also, look, to be honest, the colonial invasion was built on racial discrimination. It's still very much part of the DNA of this country, whether it's in your face or not. It's still embroiled within its structures and so forth. Let's all take our personal responsibility to eradicate it, so we can all, not just Aboriginal people, but all the multicultural people that now live on Aboriginal land don't have to cope with that sort of stuff and have equal opportunities. We're trying to create self-determination still nearly 200 years later through what's now called a treaty process. So let's hope we can get some form of self-determination, because this mission station here, even though I do have mixed feelings about it, where language and culture was banned, it allowed us to form more stronger family structures until they designed the stolen generation policies, which then destroyed our families. So as much as we've tried to adapt to this colony, they have never really let us. And so this self-determination business is our real key to the future. And I encourage people to learn a bit more about the treaty process, because we're after non-Indigenous support and understanding around it. The Welcome to Country ceremony, it's a law ceremony. It's like a passport. It gives you access to land. It makes you feel safe. It allows you to conduct your business, any type of business you come here for. We do a smoking ceremony to cleanse your murup, your spirit, and the murup biik, which is the spirit of the land. Now, no fires up here today, but I'd just like to say, like I said at the start, I can't welcome everyone to country because not everyone respects it. But allowing me to speak briefly for you before your event, I feel that respect. So we say, Waminjika Wurundjeri Biik, welcome Wurundjeri country. And I hope you have a really great day listening to some deadly music, which is our modern word for good, if you didn't know. So thank you. So thanks a lot.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Uncle Bill. That was so beautiful. We were both backstage listening and smiling and feeling super, super grateful that we got to start the day with him. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for coming today. Welcome to the first ever Higher Notes Music Conference 2022. I know the concept of a music conference is not new, is not reinventing any wheels, and is definitely not, groundbreaking. But I think when we were designing this conference, what we really wanted to do was celebrate Naarm's music community. I think there's so many conferences out there, and it's all about the networking, the showcasing, the promoting, the business side of things. But what we really wanted to do today was celebrate really important cultural changes that are happening. And we wanted to celebrate that those cultural changes that are happening in Naarm at the moment are happening because of a really, really beautiful community behind it. So yeah, thank you so much for being a part of it. I hope you get some beautiful insights into those changes. And yeah, I want to introduce all of you Simone, who runs Music Victoria and also the Melbourne Music Market. Super grateful to be doing things in this space today. I know it's the first time that many of you would have come into this space. And it's just so nice because it has so much sunlight and it has such a beautiful space to host this kind of wholesome events. So thank you for having the event here today, Simone. I'll let you talk.
You're very welcome. Thank you all so much for your patience as well as we, just put the finishing touches on our decorations, because we did want to make it really special for you. We want it to be warm. We want it to be cozy. We want to just sit and enjoy each other's company and have some chats about the great music that's being made right here. I'd also like to thank Uncle Bill, because welcomes are not automatic. We have to be gifted those. So I think it's important that we don't take those for granted, and really thank Uncle Bill for welcoming us. And I hope you have all come with purpose to learn and to share and to grow together and to reflect. We've had some really hard times in the music industry, but today is all about hope and optimism and rebirth for the future. So I'm really excited to be working with Triana, who's had such a beautiful curatorial vision pulling this all together, and I hope you enjoy the day. There's now also logistics. Just bathrooms where you were waiting for a really long time. Yeah, there's gender-neutral bathrooms out there, and we will have a break after the first panel for about 20 minutes, so you can grab a drink and some snacks then. But yeah, feel free to move around the space and make yourselves really comfortable. We want to make it work for you today. Thanks.
And to kickstart the panels, we're actually having a little surprise performance of one cute little song. And everybody, please welcome us to the stage, Georgia Mack.
Hello. My name's Georgia. Thank you for coming to watch me. I know none of you knew that I was going to be doing this, but thank you anyway. Thank you so much to Triana and Simone for doing this. This is really cool. And to Uncle Bill for that beautiful welcome to country. So I am going to be playing a song that I wrote kind of like in lockdown. I don't remember lockdown. So in lockdown, how there was the 5 kilometer rule, and so you'd set your Tinder to 5 kilometers. And I don't know about anyone else, but I developed some really strange crushes. Like people who you'd never think of in like a horny way. Anyway, so this song's about my neighbor. It's fine, it's fine. We're besties now. Tried making out, and then I think I was just confused, and it was lockdown. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's actually his birthday today, so happy birthday, Michael, wherever you are. Okay. Please don't judge me. Packaging I don't recognize, trashed on the road outside. At least they were supporting the little guy, and I reckon you read my sign. Seen you riding round my street, up by the pizza shop that accepts cryptocurrency, and I bet that you've seen me. They say I'm pretty hard to unsee. Maybe I want to, maybe I ain't trying to settle down. Neighbor, I'm going home. I'll lay by your side but sleep alone. Yeah. We've been talking on the phone. We've been sat next to each other with our eyes closed. Yeah, I read it online, it must be so. And I asked whether you didn't know that I've been thinking about kissing you. And I know you have to figure me out before you make your move. Well, I'm sat here and I know what to do. I'm sat here, all eyes on you. Maybe I want to, maybe I ain't trying to settle down. sleep alone. I'll lay by your side before I go. Sat on your couch, getting closer together. Oh, if we go too far, then I'll want forever, forever, baby. We're not just neighbors. See what you're doing later. Oh, honey, don't be a stranger. Oh, I said, baby, we're not just neighbors. See what you're doing later. Oh, honey, don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger. What are you doing? Do you want to go to High Point? Okay, thank you so much. Playing acoustic guitar is really embarrassing. I'm so sorry.
So one of our panellists isn't quite here yet, but it's all right because they're super famous, so we'll make lots and lots of excuses for them. But I might just take this moment to let you know that we do have some name tags, and although we don't want it to be like a tacky advertised sell kind of conversation, it would be really nice for you to meet someone today and share the love that is the music community. So if you just head into the middle, there's some name tags and some pens, and so I invite you to jump up there and grab a glass of water and just start having a chat until we have the panellists here. Sorry about that, guys.
Baby, why you blessing me?
I'm praying that's the way that it goes. 'Cause right when I'm about to turn the doorknob, it seems it's all locked up and the key decomposed. Remind me this the life that I chose. Go full speed, I can't read the signs that say stop. I brush it off and try to act all nonchalant. Yeah, I notice everything, I just act like I don't. Boy, I know what I want. I know what I want. Just what I know what I want. I know what I want. Don't tell me, 'cause you swear that you've grown. It's 5 in the morning, you won't call or come home. I'm getting really tired of it all up in my phone. Boy, leave it alone. I'm learning, now I know. Should've left your ass in the friend zone. One door opens when another door closes. I'm praying that's the way that it goes. 'Cause right when I'm about to turn the doorknob, it seems it's all locked up and the key decomposed. Remind me this the life that I chose. Go full speed. Can't read the signs that say stop. I brush it off and try to act on it so long. Yeah, I notice everything. I just act like I don't. Boy, I know what I want. I know what I want. Just what I know what I want. I know what I want. Don't tell me. Boy, I know what I want. I know what I want. Just what I know what I want. I know what I want. Don't tell me. 'Cause I know just what don't tell me 'cause I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Don't tell me. Know what I want. Yeah, I know what I want. Boy, I know what I want. Yeah, I know what I want. Boy, I know what I want. I know what I want. Just what I know what I want. I know what I want. Don't tell me 'cause you swear you've grown. It's 5 in the morning. You won't call or come home. I'm getting really tired of it all up in my phone. Boy, leave it alone. Shoulda left your ass in the friend zone. Do 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 da You are my church, you are my place of worship. I heard you the block, can I be the circuit? When I got caught, I hope that you're the verdict. When you're around, my insides turn inverted. My blood starts to rush when I see you dormant. I know you're nearby and I know your purpose. Take one look at you, you're heaven's incarnate. What is the spell, baby? Please show some mercy. Melting like an ice cream when you smile. Daydreams stay I pray that I can learn to be funny. I'm watching every stand-up comedy, just hoping that it'll rub off on me. So you smile at everything I say. You got some soft lips and some pearly white. I wanna touch them in the dead of night. Your smile ignites just like a candlelight. And somehow I know everything's alright. Melting like an ice cream when you smile. Melting your If I told you I was yours, you'd probably label me a bug. Maybe I'm just trying way too hard to keep you. You're an angel and I'm blessed, so I am trying to do my best. Want you to know how very nice it was to meet you. So much time I spent to find something that I could call mine. Something real out of all of these phony people. And I know our past is tainted. It's a shame now, baby, ain't it? But I'm willing if you're willing. I'll be see-through. Can you take this chance on me? You won't regret it. Come on and get it. Love is like the lottery. We had issues. Can we dismiss those? Can you take this chance on me? You won't regret it. Come on and get it. You're the only one I say. Yeah, we had issues. Can we dismiss those?
Okay, we're back. We're good to go. I hope you've made some new friends. Come and take a seat. I was actually standing on my tippy toes behind this lectern, and then I realised I could just bring the mic down. But, you know, slowly learning. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate your patience with us today. Hopefully you've made some new friends. And now we have all our panellists. So over to you, Triana.
Cute. Hello. Oh my God. Thank you everyone for your energies. I was a little bit like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? And then I looked up and everyone is just literally vibing, just like having a cute chat with everyone. And I was like, yes, the right event, the right people, the right audiences. So like, thank you so much for cooperating there. Okay, so first panel, alt pop superstars. Now, when we were designing this panel, I feel like one of the biggest cultural changes that has happened in the past couple of years in Australia or in NARM's music community even is that we've started to see this change because for us, in Australian terms, I think when we talk about like music, people usually think, you know, pop rock or indie rock, punk. And I think globally, that's what we've been sort of exporting for a really long time, which is nice and everything. Like I love Cold Chisel, I love Midnight Oil, I love, you know, Hoodoo Gurus, you know. But it's so nice to see that that's changing. It's so refreshing to see that over the past years, we've been seeing this massive rise of alt pop superstars. I have 3 of them here today, and I am so excited. So can we just give them all a round of applause first for vibes? So I have Kai, who is one of my favorite R&B pop superstar divas. She's taken over Beyonce. She's like taken over Doja. She's gonna take over TikTok. Like, honestly, give it up for Kai, everyone. Then we have our power emo queen, Georgia Mack. She obviously, you might also know her from Camp Cope, but her solo project, I think, is where she really gets down to the emo pop, and it's so beautiful and it's so iconic. Give it up for Georgia Mack, everyone. And then last but not least, we have Ash Warrior, who is oh my God, Ash. When you agreed to do this panel, I was like, because you are literally like, I feel like the alt pop Billie Eilish. And I think you're like literally gonna take over Billie Eilish. So thank you so much. Also, sorry, we didn't agree on that before. I said you're gonna take over Dua Lipa because you're performing tomorrow opening for her. Okay, yeah, big things. Also, Kai is opening for TLC as well. Georgia is vibing, but when Taylor Swift comes, manifesting. Okay, so now I feel like when we were like writing the questions, I just wanted to start by asking something like really cute and, you know, casual, which is, when was the first time that each of you realized that you wanted to be a pop artist? We'll start with you, Kai.
I think that one's always really interesting for me because it was when I was like super tiny. It probably would have been when I was like 3 or 4. So I have an older brother who loves music, and his obsession for Michael Jackson was just like infectious. So watching Michael Jackson videos and live performances and Janet Jackson and like learning dance routines and performing for our parents, like that was like that time that I was like, yes, pop music is it. It's the one. Yeah, that kind of got a little obscure later on when I was like, pop music is not cool. Yeah, and then kind of grew back into pop music again. So yeah, it started from when I was really young, and it's just kind of been a journey, I guess.
Was there any moments in front of the mirror?
Too many moments. Had one this morning. It's all I do now, just sing pop songs to myself in the mirror.
Cute. And Georgia?
I would get up really early on Saturday mornings and watch Rage, and I really liked all like the bands and stuff like that, but I never really saw myself like represented. And then I started kind of like, I loved like Pink and stuff, and I liked her, and so I'd like, when I was a little kid, I'd imagine myself performing like big stadiums like Pink, but not with like the acrobatics. For me, it was like, in my head, it was like me like on like a motorbike, riding through the crowd and then coming up on stage and like singing.
So Lady Gaga-ish.
Yeah, that kind of vibe. And then in like my teens, I started loving like Riot Girl music, because that's kind of where I saw myself represented, like watching like Bikini Kill and Sleater-Kinney and Bratmobile and stuff. Yeah, but I kind of like shied away from pop for a while because my like internalized misogyny was like, no, pop music's like lame and like whatever. I want to be in a cool band and dress androgynous and stuff like that. But now I'm like trying to embrace it because there's so much power in pop music. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. And Ash, what about you?
I had 2 sort of light bulb moments, like literally light bulb moments, and the first one was, this doesn't correlate to, I guess, like Western pop, but I grew up predominantly on Bollywood, and there's such a large aspect of glitz, glam, and like everything pop in the music videos and the way that actors and actresses represent music in that region. So just growing up with so much of this, I guess just over the top everything, from outfits to music to being a performer essentially in these movies, I was like, okay, this is something that I want to be on the screen doing the exact same thing. And then when I started getting introduced to more of Western pop music, the second light bulb moment that I had was, I was in primary school and I went to my very first concert, which was a Rihanna concert. Oh, nice. And I actually had like, usually, you know when people say that you have like, this was the moment that I found out, that was actually the moment. And I was like, I want to do exactly, like I want to be on that stage right now. and it was kind of like a full circle moment because I hadn't written any music and I hadn't experienced what it was like to perform, but it was definitely just like, this is what I want to do, and that's how I kind of decided that that's the career path that I want to take.
I love that, and I feel like I remember reading an interview where you talked about as well as Bollywood being obviously the influence. You were listening to sorry, I'm not from here, so I don't remember quite the name. Is it Fresh Hits?
So Fresh.
So Fresh. Yeah. So I feel like, you know, when I read that interview and then I listened to your music, I could totally see the blend between the influences of like super hyper pop, you know, like Super Fresh, and then you have, you know, this sort of like almost like rejection of it, but with like a glam, you know what I mean? Like let me just ask the next question, which is, in which ways do you think your project is pop? I mean, in which ways do you think is alt?
I think that a lot of the realization of which is what part of it is alt and pop comes after I create the music. So it's quite a subconscious creative process where I'm not sort of having any preconceived like ideas or anything. I just go in, create, and then I reflect and I realize that, okay, there is a lot of the sounds that I grew up on, which is the Bollywood element, which comes through in the production. And then in the sort of melodies and the top line, it's definitely those early 2000s pop hits that I was introduced to that will come through. It's a good question because I think as artists, I'm sure these guys can relate, is that when you are creating, you don't necessarily think so much about, okay, today I'm going to write like a pop song or I'm going to write like a indie rock song. It's almost like after you come out and you take a second and you listen to what you've just created that you realize like, oh my God, this is literally just an expression of all the influences that I grew up on and everything that I wanted to put into the song. So yeah, it's a tricky one because I don't necessarily think too much about how much percentage-wise I want to make it pop or alt. But now that I listen back to my first EP, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of elements that I would say is not necessarily fitting in the pop space, but it's almost like pushing towards that.
And do you feel as well like when you were asked to be part of the Alt Pops, you know, panel, where you're like, oh yeah, that's me, or you're like, I guess that's me? You know?
No, I think absolutely that's me because pop, like, it's so interesting because what pop used to be like 10 years ago, it was essentially like, it was a sound. Everyone would be like, that's a pop song. But today, pop music it can be anything. Pop music is almost genreless now because when you look at the top 50 hits right now on Spotify, you're looking at artists that are making genre blending, bilingual, punk rock. Like there can be a jazz hit tomorrow on Spotify that could be #1, and that's the most exciting part about being part of the pop world, is that you can make anything sound pop. So yeah, no, I definitely associate with the pop label.
Claim it.
Yeah, I'm gonna claim that.
And what about you, Georgia? Because I think it's also special that you were talking before about how I think almost like you started by, you know, being part of more of like the what would you call it? Like more of like the indie rock. Yeah, and yeah, tell us a little bit about how you now view yourself as maybe part of the pop world or the alt side of things as well.
I don't really feel like I'm in any kind of scene. I feel like I'm too pop for the alt, too alt for the pop. My band's like not cool enough to like play at the Tote or anything like that. You know what I mean? Sorry, I just completely disassociated for a moment. I don't know if you can tell, I was in another world. I really want to do pop because I love pop and I love the way that it makes me feel. I feel like the way that I write songs, like structurally, is very pop with like, you know, like verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus. I feel like I can really get like stuck in that way of like writing a song, and like I'm very like aware of it. But I forgot the question.
I guess like the question is, in which ways do you view yourself as pop, and in which ways do you see yourself as alt? Especially because you come from a background of, you know, indie rock, I suppose.
Yeah, because my like musical roots, like I started just like, it was only in the last like 2 years that I got like a manager, but I like started off just like playing with an acoustic guitar like at the pub, and I'd, you know, at like the old bar and stuff like that. I started off like there, and then started a band, and the band like Camp Cope's like alternative, and now I feel like I've kind of like, I don't know, I just kind of like keep growing, and I want to be more in like the pop way, but I definitely think that like the way that I'm pop is my song structures, really. Yeah. And then the alt is just like writing about weird things that, like I wrote a song about a 49-year-old man I fell in love with. That's not okay.
I mean, I feel like it's actually interesting that you mention like the structure that you have, because I feel like all of you, anytime you release a song, like it's so catchy. Like anytime any of you, you know, like I hear on the radio, or like, you know, like I, you know, like see it in like a video or anything, immediately it's like stuck in my head, but like non-stop. And I think that is the beauty of pop music in the structure, you know, like I'm not a songwriter, but like I feel like whatever you're all doing, thank you. And how about you, Kai? In which ways do you feel you're alt, and in which ways do you think you're pop?
I think it's kind of interesting for me because I didn't make the kind of music that I make now when I first started. I was really like folky, really kind of indie, was like also my acoustic guitar, and like that was just like my vibe. I was like, yes, I'm an indie girl. And then kind of came out of that and was making like very neo soul music, which kind of went into like a dancey kind of space, and then from neo soul started making like R&B music, and then into what I'm making now. And I think just listening across all of that music, I was like, this is the same, it's been the same thing forever and ever. Like it's never actually been like, oh my God, here's indie Kai, and like now here's R&B pop Kai. It's always been the same kind of structure, the same kind of melodies, and the same kind of feel. And I think like Aishwarya said, like pop music is no longer one genre, it's completely genreless. And I think the idea of being like, oh, I'm a genre bending artist is kind of just like, yeah, dude, you make pop music. Like it's just all one space. So I think, yeah, kind of like breaking down those barriers for myself and being like, yeah, sure, it was on a guitar and now it's produced, but it's always been pop music. It's always been that pop structure, and it's always been just, yeah, the things that I have always loved about pop music. So I think in that way I've always been pop. I think the alt part is just like, it's not bubblegum pop. It's not, I think, what people associate pop music with, in the sense that, you know, it's not always the prettiest, it's not always the cutest, it's not always as put together as pop is and as put together as pop stars are. So I think that's kind of where the alt comes in. It's a little bit of edge, you know, just a bit of like R&B edge, coolness. Yeah, so maybe I'm not even that alt. Maybe I'm just super pop.
That kind of got me thinking, like, is Amy Winehouse pop? Is it like jazz pop? Is it alt pop? Or is it just pop? I don't know. I think pop music is just the natural kind of progression now, because like we like pop music because it's like really good and it gets stuck in your head. And I think it's just the natural progression for artists. Like as we improve, we get more poppy, which just means we get better. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I feel like even when I was like putting this panel together, I even wondered, you know, why am I calling it alt pop? Because I guess part of me thought about it in the sense that like am I calling it alt pop because within the context of Australia, making pop is alternative? Is that making sense? Like, you know, like I was like thinking like, is the alt because in the Australian context, like we've just started to embrace pop, but making pop is alternative. Whereas if you're like say in America, like you would be almost like expected to write pop, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Which I think kind of like brings me to my next question, which is that, so I am curious because, you know, I've been very much like following like Australia's trends in music and whatnot over the past 7 years. And I feel like there's been this really huge cultural shift, particularly in the last, I think, like 2 years, where we've kind of gone, like I was saying at the beginning, from having the main, you know, like export or like headliners or whatever, or like what the people want, being like rock and whatnot, and obviously a very male and white male dominated scene. And now that I feel like younger people want to go out and see more pop things, you know, they want to dance more, they want to maybe like have more confessional music and this kind of stuff. I feel like it's definitely made it more of a, you know, like, how do I say this? Because I don't want to be polarizing or controversial.
Can I add a point?
Yes, absolutely, please.
I think that the reason like people are coming out and wanting to view more pop music is because pop shows are generally like in like the, you know, not in like the level of like, you know, Ariana Grande playing Manchester and there being a bombing. But I think that pop shows are generally more safer because it's more like female and non-binary queer dominated, whereas like the times that like I've had like negative experiences at shows are where it's like hardcore rock, all men, you know, and it's men like, you know, expressing their toxic masculinity in a dangerous way, whereas like pop music is like fun, dance, like safe place for like anywhere that, you know, a teenage girl can feel safe and valid and like she can express herself is the kind of like space that I want to be in, and that's what I want to create. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's definitely along the lines of what I was like thinking, because I feel like, you know, again, like working in the music industry for 7 years, I could tell that any time that I would mention the word pop near men, there would be kind of like, you know, like immediately. And I'm like, you don't even know what band I'm talking about. Like, I haven't even said, you know, but it was like the word pop immediately was like dumb. And, you know, is it because usually pop has like more non-binary and, you know, queer people and women, you know, like, yes.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. It's this whole thing of like making pop music isn't intellectual. It doesn't show, you know, musicality. It doesn't show that, you know, it doesn't show proficiency. And I think people who think that way have never tried to write a good pop song. And I think I almost kind of felt that way myself. And I was like, oh, you know, well, if I can't write a good R&B song today, I'll probably just write like a trashy pop song. But like, it's hard to write pop music. It's hard to write something that sticks. It's hard to write a melody that resonates. And it is highly intellectual. But I think for ages we've just been told like, oh, look at this pop star. Look at Taylor Swift. She is this. She is dumb. She doesn't have any good ideas. Pop stars have 10 songwriters and 10 producers, and they don't have to think for themselves, and they get created into a brand. And yeah, they're just there to look good and to sound good, and everything else gets done for them. And I think that's the idea that's been perpetuated about pop for a really long time, which is why when people hear pop, they just go, ugh, yeah, that's dumb.
Absolutely. And like I remember like the first time that, you know, I knew that, you know, obviously when I moved here, I was aware that there was this band called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And I was like, oh, cool. They're like, you know, obviously huge, one of the biggest bands, blah, blah, blah. And then someone put a song and it was Rattlesnake. And I was like, this is the Wiggles. Like, this is like the structure of the Wiggles. Like, listen, if you listen to the song, it's literally rattlesnake, 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 rattlesnake. I'm like, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato. You know what I mean? And like, not to diss King Gizzard, but like, they're pop. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, so that's okay, but like, you know, if like, I feel like if maybe like, you know what I mean? Like, they're still just. Anyways, the question is. The question is, you know, as people who are obviously being interviewed and going on gigs and stuff like that, I was curious to know when you are being described on radio or, you know, doing your press releases or just generally mingling with the Australian musical industry, like, do you have any kind of like insights into kind of how are you perceived when people, you know, are like, okay, cool, here's a pop artist. Like, do you feel like, you know, there's been changes where you're being super embraced lately, or do you feel like there's still a bit of resistance, there's still a bit of like a, you know, like, do you get a bit of shade, or do you get people being like, finally, you know, like and I'm not talking audiences, because I know people adore all of you, your fans, but I'm talking more like industry, you know? Yeah. Ash?
I would say that when I first put out Biryani, which was a song that was bilingual, I would say it's a pop song, straight up. But it definitely, I'll be the first to admit that my music isn't exactly straight down the line pop. It definitely has a lot of different influences coming in, but I did get perceived as R&B, which I don't know where that was coming from. R&B, you know, Indian-born Australian artist, R&B, Bhangra drums, bilingual. Those were kind of like the bingo words for me. And it got to a point where I was kind of like, yo, I kind of just want to be described as this. I want this song to be described as just like a pop song, because I'm trying to make a pop song with just all the influences that I grew up on. And I think it has the hook and the melodies that can be classified as pop. And then as I started putting out more music in 2020 and 2021, I was still kind of, I think people were struggling to define where exactly I sit in. So I'm not in the R&B space or the hip-hop space. I'm not exactly in the pop space. So where does that leave me? And I think even now, I still think that I'm not... The labeling me and my music has not been something that anyone's sort of been like, okay, this is Aishwarya. But I'm not super like opposed to that. I think it's cool keeping people on their feet, but also just keeping things sort of, I don't want to say genreless, but just interesting in the sense that I could put out this song, which is this, and the next track something completely different. I will say, though, that I think in the Australian music industry, it does take a hot minute for people to embrace anyone that's sort of making something that isn't straight down the line. So if my audience is perceiving something as a pop song and, you know, singing along and like it's hooky and stuff like that, I don't think that it's exactly the same point of view in terms of the industry. I think it does take a hot minute for them to be like, okay, let's fully embrace this and what it is. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if I was to make something a little bit more palatable in terms of pop sensibility, then things might be labeled differently. And so that's something that I've tried to navigate a little bit in the past year, is how do I don't try and let it get to me, but it's always that little element of like people just using those like bingo words, and I'm like, okay, there's more to it than just that. There's more to it than it just being bilingual. So yeah.
And in that sense, I feel like and perhaps I'm like sort of like adding like a second question, but you know, we'll come back and everything. But I just had a thought about how maybe it's important as well to think about how, well, do you think when you write, do you think you write thinking of the Australian audiences, or do you think of your global audiences? Because I feel like, you know, even when I look at the comments on YouTube, it's usually people from other countries who like get it. And, you know, I'm assuming, so for example, with you, like having like a song that is like bilingual, and with your heritage as well, like, I mean, the market, like you have two huge markets. Like, why would you write thinking of one? You know what I mean? So like when you're writing, do you think you're kind of like thinking, do you think about your audiences, or just like kind of thinking about you, or like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I was just thinking about me because I had nothing to really look for in terms of an audience. But in all honesty, at the moment, obviously, relatively speaking, it's a much larger country. So, but American audiences are my biggest audience across socials and streaming platforms and stuff like that. So I'm not necessarily looking to like, I want to make a song for that specific audience, but I've always sort of looked at making music that is for a global audience, because I'm very much a global artist in that sense. And I think all the influences coming through are coming from different cultures and different sounds. So definitely I am making music for a global audience, and I see myself in that light. I just wanted to add on a positive note that, like, as much as the industry here, it is sort of, they are a bit slow to embrace. Ultimately, like tomorrow, I'm supporting Dua, and I think that's a great first step in terms of, you know, putting a limelight on emerging pop artists in Australia and putting them against someone who's undeniably one of the largest, biggest pop acts in the world. And it just goes to show that, you know, there is steps moving forward in the Australian music industry that is sort of shining a light on artists that are kind of going left of center as well.
yeah, I'm so excited for that tomorrow. So Georgia, how about you? Like, do you feel like, like, what are some sort of reactions that you have when, you know, you talk about, well, I don't know if you talk about making music, like pop music, but like, what are some sort of insights that you can bring into this conversation in terms of how the music industry perceives you?
I just want to respond to you quickly, because you're carving your own path and people are like, they don't know how to describe it yet because you're doing something completely new, and so they'll try to like pigeonhole you into shit. But like, bitch, you're carving your own path. Like, who cares?
Yes, and we're celebrating that today.
Celebrating it.
Yes, carving our own paths. Yes.
I used to fucking hate the music industry because when Camp Cope started and put out a song, and, you know, Triple J were, you know, doing Triple J stuff, they described us at their end of year, in their end of year magazine, as this year's girl band. Not just a band. We're not a band. No, we're a girl band. It's really different. It's actually so different. So I got really shitty at that for a really long time because, like, we were just, you know, people just thought of us as a girl band. But they didn't think of, you know, King Gizzard as, like, a boy band, you know?
The adult Wiggles.
Yeah, the adult Wiggles. I love King Gizzard. I think they're really fantastic
I love the
people.
Wiggles.
And the Wiggles are also great.
No shade on either.
No. But I think more recently, like, people, like, don't describe Camp Cope in a way that I think is acceptable. I think it's kind of lazy a bit. Like, and maybe this is like 5 years ago or something, us being described as like indie folk. But like on our second record, there was no harmonies, there was no like acoustic guitar in the song, there was no like folk, there was nothing folk about it. Like the song structures were all like pop song structures except for like the opener, which is just like verse, 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 verse. There's no chorus to it. But I don't know, I got a bit pissy at that. So I just created my own genre called Power Emo, and that's what I think Camp Cope is. Because, yeah, you got to create your own, you got to carve your own path.
Absolutely.
Like,
because now you're doing solo, you know, and I was wondering, like, when you were kind of like doing your solo EP, were you kind of thinking about that and how you maybe wanted to differentiate or make it more pop or somehow, like, you know, were you like, how do I feel about playing a guitar? You know, are they going to call me indie folk again? You know, like.
yeah. So I put out this record called Pleaser at the end of 2019, and I just kind of like dropped it out of nowhere because I love like freaking people out. Like, what's she gonna do next? Because I guess that's what people expected of me to, you know, have to just be like Camp Cope. But I was like, nah, I want to create some like garage band pop record with my friend in her bedroom. And so that's what I did. And that, I don't know, I don't think it was really like, I don't know how to describe Pleaser. I think like pop song structure, but kind of like a bit like darker. Maybe alt pop even. I don't know.
Well, you're at the right panel.
But yeah, I aim to be undefinable. I aim to just freak people out. I never want people to know how to describe me. And I want them to get it wrong so that I can, I don't know, feel something.
Georgia is a Cancer, everyone, just as a bracket.
Yeah.
Cute. And what about you, Kai? Like, what's some insights from like the industry perception of you as a pop, R&B, whatever?
Yeah, myself in genre and Australian music industry. Ugh. My genre has always been intrinsically linked to my blackness, which has always been a bit of a fight, a bit of like an internal struggle for me, because it's just like, yes, I know I'm black, but at every turn, must I be just like reminded that like, ooh, black artist and not just artist? And like, I think it took me a while to be like, that's great, that's positive. But it's like, I put out my first song in 2019 as Kai, and it was Good Company, and it is by far my most pop song. It is so, like, the beginning literally has like those like annoying little roadsy, like ding, bing, 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 like super bubblegum. And uploaded it onto Triple J Unearthed. Someone messaged me and was like, hey, your song's on the Triple J Unearthed chart. I was like, that's awesome. Go to check it out. Number 2 on the hip hop chart. And I was like, there is no element of this at all that is hip hop. It was just like song, black girl, hip hop. And that just used to piss me off so much, because it was like, it doesn't matter what I do, everyone is always going to view me as a black artist more than just like, what is she actually making? And like, I remember having this conversation with my mum and just being like, you know, if I had just like slapped a blonde white girl onto the cover of this song, it would be a pop song. And that just, it's something that I had to kind of grow into and be like, actually, you know what? I do want everyone to know that I'm black. I want everyone to listen to this song and be like, oh, I wonder if this is a black artist, because I'm really proud of being black and really proud of like bringing a black perspective to pop music. But yeah, it's kind of taken yelling from the rooftops that I am a pop star to not be called just R&B or not to be called a hip hop artist. And like, I read an article from a show that I did last year, and in the article, it was like, hip-hop outfit Kai. And I was like, were you at the set at all? Because there was no hip-hop at all. Like, even the rap verses, I just, like, danced to them while they were, like, in there. There's, like, Sampa the Great in there. Like, okay, cool. I don't know what about my whole set would have been, like, hip-hop outfit, but, yeah, you didn't come to the set. That's what it was saying. And, like, same thing happened again when I opened for Sampa. Like, someone wrote a review of the show and called me a hip-hop act. And she was like, I'm going to write back to them and just ask them to change that, because that's not correct. And it's just so weird to be put in that category, because we have amazing hip-hop in Australia that is so distinctively hip-hop. And if you put me next to them, you would just be like, what's happening here? So I think it's an ongoing thing. I don't really mind now, like sort of being placed adjacently to like what Australia thinks of as black music. But I do think we are so overdue for an expansion of the way that we view black artists and the way that we view black music, because if I wanted to make indie music, it should just be indie. It shouldn't be R&B indie. If I just want to make a pop song, it doesn't have to be R&B pop. Yeah, so I think it's an ongoing conversation. It's something that still, just needs to change. But yeah, at the same time, I'm just learning internally to not mind so much and be like, all right, I see what you're saying. You're just saying I'm black, and that's fine. I am.
And like, I mean, I feel like in that sense, I feel like, I am definitely seeing the changes. I feel like Australia has definitely slowly learned. Like, I remember maybe in 2019, I was part of the programming team of, I'm not going to say the name, but like one of the biggest music industry conferences. And they were like, we were all sitting together and, we're discussing, the programming. And they're like, guys, I'm telling you, what's coming next is hip hop. And I'm like, it's 2019. Like, if you look at like literally the whole world, the biggest thing everywhere is hip hop. And everyone is like, hip hop, okay, cool. And they're like literally sitting there, like, this big table of like obviously all white people being like, cool, what does that mean? They're like, we need to find hip hop artists. We need to like do panels about hip hop. Like, guys, literally the new wave is coming, hip hop. And everyone was like, yeah, cool. Like literally one step away from Googling hip hop, right? And so I think like if we put it into perspective, if in 2019, the room of programmers at the biggest music industry conference, which I will take over. No, I'm kidding. But like if they were kind of like realizing that hip hop is big, 2019, come on. I feel like, with a little bit of time, they're going to start understanding that, because at that thing, I was like, oh yeah, what about trap? And they were all like, what? What's trap? Yeah, so this is like the music industry leaders, right? So I feel like only kind of like maybe like recently they figured out that, there's like trap, there's like hip hop, there's like, Doja Cat, for example, is not hip hop, it's just pop, and I'm definitely starting to see that is changing, especially because the younger generations, I think definitely Gen Z knows their shit. And what's really exciting for me to have the three of you here is that I think the three of you are going to be leading that change. And the three of you are definitely going to be, like showing by example what's what. And that's like, I think it's really, really exciting. I think maybe 3 years ago, if I would have done a conference, I would have done a conference to complain and call out. And I did do that for a long time of my career. But now I just want to celebrate and thank, because I think I'm like super grateful that the three of you are definitely doing something that is new, that is exciting, and that, people even younger than you are not going to have to deal with that, like younger generation. So I guess maybe before we wrap and go into questions, just maybe if you wanted to give like one little tip or word of advice or something for any future pop artist,
That's hard. I feel like if you got me into a room with like a bunch of little young pop stars, I'd be like, listen up. Here's everything. No, I think being authentic is the most important thing. I think you just can't go wrong if you're yourself at all times. And not everyone is going to like that. Not everyone's going to be into it. And it's going to take people time to get around it. But at the same time, you'll always look back and just be like, I am so proud of what I did. And I'm so proud of what I achieved when I was just being me. So yeah, stay authentic.
My motto is, when in doubt, freak 'em out. And I like all three of us sitting on here because we're all like carving our own path. And, they won't know how to describe us, and they'll, pigeonhole us by like our gender, our skin color, our cultural heritage, all that kind of stuff. Like if you're like anyone in music who isn't like white and a man, like who you are gets like, you know, put into, you know, the people when people like describe your music, like when people are like, oh, she's like a black hip hop artist or like girl band or like bilingual, you know, all that kind of stuff. People will try to like use that to like describe you rather than like actually looking at like your art for what it is. I don't know like the point that I was making other than like it sucks, but also like it's kind of like cool. I don't know, just freak 'em out.
When in doubt, freak
When
'em
in
out.
doubt, freak 'em out. Aim to leave 'em speechless, you know? Yeah. Okay.
I fully back that in terms of leave them speechless. I think that we're constantly pushed in Australia as Australian artists to unfortunately there is a tall poppy approach towards Australian artists. And I actually made a tweet about this a while ago, and I was talking to someone about Australian music, and their very short and sweet response was, I don't really fuck with Aussie artists. And that just goes to show I thought about that, and my initial response was like I was very frustrated, and I was like, wow, such a closed-minded view. But if you dig deeper, unfortunately, the gatekeepers in this industry, they don't necessarily allow for Australian artists to be shown and portrayed in a light that is equal to international artists. And so I would say that for anyone out here that's wanting to start a career in the music industry, wanting to be a pop artist, whatever you want to do, just ignore that noise and believe in the fact that you're going to be the next big thing. Ignore the tall poppy, ignore someone who's like, oh, she's a local artist. You're not a local artist. Believe in the fact that you're going to be the next big artist. Whatever work you're doing is, as long as Kai said, as long as you're being authentic and as long as you're being yourself, people will believe in you. They will find you. Just don't let people put you down, because so many people will try to put you down, and that is the unfortunate aspect of the industry. But if you utilize your resources correctly, it will happen for you. I started in lockdown. I made 4 music videos, 2 in the garage and 2 in my house. And if you utilize your resources and you really believe in what you're doing, it will come through. You don't have to I'm not saying you have to go to jump on TikTok and sell yourself out, but just back that you're special, back that whatever you're doing is important. And that's probably the best advice I'd give.
Can I just touch on the tall poppy thing? I feel like the tall poppy thing is, the gatekeepers are like the music industry, and the way to overcome that is just by like supporting each other and knowing that like there's enough room for everyone. Like art is completely limitless, and like it's not like a ladder that we've got to climb. Like it's this big, it's a big round table that we can all have a seat at, and the way to do that is to just like support each other and completely reject like the fucking like gatekeeping and the tall poppy thing. Just like it's very classic Australian.
And I think that's kind of basically what I wanted to celebrate today. You know, those changes and attitudes. Like I'm seeing them. You know what I mean? Like when I started 7 years ago, it was a very, very different industry, and I feel like it's so exciting for me to see artists like the 3 of you putting your music and it reaching not only local audiences but international audiences as well. And I think a funny anecdote is that when I saw you, Kai, perform the other day at Yaya's, when you performed the other day, I remember, there was kind of like some like walk-ins that were people that were, just at Yaya celebrating, and and I remember you were like, out there being this like superstar, and this guy, who was obviously really gagged, but he was like, he like walks in with his friends, and he's like, and he's like, oh my God, who is she? And he like gets his Shazam out and is like Shazamming and being like, but he's like not holding his front properly, whatever. And I'm like standing there and I'm just like, because he was literally like, I don't remember if you remember, but he was trying to ask you mid-set, who are you? And I was like, I'm like, let me explain who, and anyways, he goes, oh, but like, where in America is she from? I'm like, oh no, she's not from America, she's from here. And it's like, no, but she sounds like from America. And I'm like, no, she does not sound American. It's like, but like, it's like pop. And I'm like, yes, there is pop in Australia, So I think that little anecdote, as much as at the beginning I was like, oh my God, I'm literally about to go bouncer on this guy and be like out. I was like, just calm down. There is pop in Australia now. Like, things are changing. Like, we can Shazam this together, And then, he didn't, because then you did that beautiful thing where you were like, say my name out loud. And everyone was like, Kai. So...
Yes. Wasn't even trying to be beautiful. I just love hearing my own name chanted back at me.
Superstar, pop diva. We love that. Now, also, I would love to pass on the microphone to anyone in the audience who might have a question for anyone in this beautiful panel. So just raise your hand, and Simone has the microphone over there.
Hi, thank you for that beautiful panel. It was really great. I just had a question, because we were talking about pop, kind of coming up in Australia. Was it hard finding a manager who not only understood you, but understood pop rising in Australia?
Yeah, I can answer that one really positively. I don't think I actually fully embraced being a rising pop star until I found my management. Like, they were the first people to really encourage what I was already doing, and weren't like, okay, here's what we do to make you a pop star. They were like, here's what you're doing, that's already great, and we're just going to run with that. So I think it can be hard to find a manager, but I think if you're just looking for someone who can jump onto your current vision and not be like, oh, here's all the things that we can change about you so that you are like so-and-so, I think that's the best way, and that does take time. Don't jump onto the first person who's like, I'm going to make you a superstar. Find people you really connect with. Find people that actually you want to be around socially, not just professionally. And just find someone who just believes in your shit to the core, like will just absolutely stand the shit out of you at all points. So I've been really lucky. They're sitting at the back there being cute.
Shout outs to Jody and Weez.
Yeah, I'm really lucky to have my manager. I've actually known her for like 7 years, because I used to make her coffee. And then one day, or like there was like one time when we were both like in New York City together, and we like got caught in the rain, and it was just very like beautiful and wonderful, and it felt like it was like meant to be. And then I was like looking for a manager, and she was like, I'll manage you. And she actually like, yeah, she saved my life. I used to be really like anti-management, because I used to be very anti the music industry, because what they don't want you to know is that the music industry is rigged. The ARIAs are rigged. It's all rigged. The Grammys are rigged. Why didn't The Weeknd get a Grammy for Blinding Lights? Because it's rigged. It's fucking rigged. And it's not, Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there, just in case anyone was wondering if it was rigged or not, because it is rigged. My point is, I'm embracing the music industry now, because we're going to change it. And you got to change it from within in a sneaky way. I don't know. I forgot the question. Anyway, my manager's my biggest fan, and she's, it's, I just kind of told her what I wanted. She was like, write down 10 things, like your biggest dreams. And we're gonna do it. And yeah, I think it's very important to just have someone who's just like, who kind of like knows what they're doing, who's been in the industry for like a while, and is your biggest fan and biggest supporter, and won't like put you on like the back bench or anything, and will just completely champion you 100%. Like whenever I'm like sad, I'll just like talk to my manager and she'll just gas me up. And yeah, I think it like that makes you feel, I don't know, feel good about it again, because I don't know, I feel like yeah, the music industry can grind you down because it's rigged. Anyway, yeah.
No, shout outs to Lorraine McKenna, who's also going to be speaking at the panel tomorrow. For those of you who know, tomorrow there's another panel like this one. You can also come. It's more like, kind of like more, there's a panel about songwriting throughout lockdowns, and there's a panel about the behind the scenes of the behind the scenes. So it's more about like, if you ever, any of you wants to like work in industry or anything like that, we'll have like sound engineers, managers and things like that, all about mental health. But Lorraine will also be speaking there because she's an amazing powerhouse. And Ash, also the question is to you. I mean, the question from the audience was, how would you go about, I guess, getting a manager that understands pop? And I do want to say as a bracket that I find it interesting that your managers are both in Sydney, which is kind of known as like the pop, city. For Australian standards, they're low. But, just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say first and foremost, when you are, I guess, looking for management, it's important that it's always ideal if they're coming to you first. If you have music out already and a management agency or a manager is coming to you, that's always a great first step. Rather than you sort of sending your music around. You always want someone who is very much like, I need to manage this artist. That's the mentality that you want from a manager. And secondly is that when you're going into a management agreement or relationship with someone, just ensure that you're not trying to sell anything to them. You're not trying to sell your brand, your music, who you are. They should already be sold off the bat. They should completely understand your vision, and they should want to elevate that tenfold. So that's a piece of advice that I just give for anyone that's looking for management or going into a management relationship. With my situation, I've been really lucky that I've still been able to have, communication is the most important thing with management, and because my managers live in Sydney, we speak on a daily basis. Like even for today's panel, one of my managers, Greg, he's hitting me up on the way, and he's like, are you all good? Make sure you take 10 minutes to, find a car park before you get in. I was like, Greg, I'm good, even though there was a lot of traffic. So it's important that, they almost become like your second parent. And even though there's a distance there, if you have the communication and everything sorted, then it should be smooth sailing.
I'm going to say, Greg, also, your manager, also messaged me, wishing me a lovely panel. And I was like, oh, my God, it's so sweet, Greg. Stop. You're
Greg.
not even managing me, Greg. But, I wish you were my manager now.
Love Greg.
Yeah, it was so sweet. I had, an emoji and everything. I was like, cute. Okay, is there any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. Hi. Oh, that's loud. Thanks for the panel. Great. I have it's a question that's kind of been touched on, I think, in a few of the answers, but I'm just a bit curious and not sure if you might be able to answer it or not, but the sort of cultural shift that you were talking about that's sort of taking place in pop music, is there sort of a geographic element to that? Is it something that's sort of taking place sort of in the Melbourne scene, or you just spoke about Sydney, is it something you see happening there, or even internationally, I don't know, London or other places as well? Is it just limited to here, or is it something more global?
I would say that it's definitely something that's more global. In terms of the shift, I've noticed that in Australia in particular, when there's a little spark that happens internationally, it sort of translates here. All of a sudden, people start paying attention. So, if you get a BBC One radio play in Australia, then Triple J are more likely to start paying attention to the artist. It's kind of like they fall onto one another, and vice versa as well. So if an artist is sort of popping off a little bit and creating traction in this region, then it does fall over into other regions. Not as strongly, but it definitely helps. I would also say that I don't think PR kind of changes the game for an artist, but it also does allow for people, especially in industry people, to get a first glimpse at an artist. So that does help as well in terms of like a global thing. Having Australian PR or even Australian artists having an international PR agency really helps with that too. I think as well, I mean, I know there's lots of conflicting views on this, but social media, if you're the type of artist that relies heavily on that to build an audience, it definitely has an impact on the way that people perceive you in Australia and globally. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the three: PR, social media, and I guess also just both regions, whichever region that you kind of are creating traction in will spill over and into the Australian market as well.
Is there anything that...
Yeah, I hate giving Sydney props for anything as someone who loves Melbourne. But honestly, Sydney pop scene is fire. Like, there are so many amazing, amazing pop artists in Sydney. And I think as well, I find that like I go to Sydney and I'm a little bit more well received in Sydney. Melbourne, we're a little too cool for school. We do like alt pop. We like things a little alternative. We like things that are strongly in a genre outside of pop. Whereas Sydney is a bit more like, hell yeah, I mess with pop music. So yeah, there's definitely something coming out of Sydney that is giving that vibe of like, yeah, we're making global pop music. And I think Melbourne, we just make good music out here. So I think there's that cultural shift that's happening here too. But yeah, I would kind of say those two hubs are kind of making that shift the most. Sydney's kind of kicking our ass a little bit, but that's okay. We'll catch up. Globally, I'm not sure. Like, I think London and LA, all those kind of music hotspots has kind of always had that mentality. I think we see it changing the more you kind of have artists traveling around everywhere. And I think like post-COVID, I'm seeing a lot of like so many artists from different places are popping up in different cities. And I think the more that we're mixing with each other, the more we're kind of seeing that cultural shift. So yeah, it's kind of the same hubs again, like where music like happens, like London and LA. But yeah, the thing that Ash mentioned as well, social media, it's like obviously not a geographical place, but that is where I would say the crux of the cultural shift is happening, because we're sharing ideas with each other instantaneously and we've never had that before. So I just think like the way that we're connecting with other artists, the way we're connecting with pop artists and artists of different genres from around the world is creating this big cultural shift. So yeah, it's definitely online. The web is the future. Can you believe it?
Guys, the internet is going to take over.
I love the internet. It's a safe place for me to be. I think Melbourne loves a counterculture. That's kind of like our thing. You know what I mean? Like lockdowns, very counterculture. And that is fantastic because we love a counterculture. But when you want to do something that's like pop or, you know, something more in like the mainstream, then it can be a bit difficult to find an audience because it's not necessarily like cool yet, but we're going to make it cool. Yeah. We're making it cool. Yeah. Carve your own path. But I don't know, Australia is so weird because like our biggest pop acts are from like our biggest pop acts are in my opinion Mallrat, the Veronicas, Amy Shark, and they're all from fucking Brisbane or something, or the Gold Coast, something in the water in Queensland.
I think it's like the shamelessness to be lame.
Yeah.
No, like no shade, at all to Queenslanders, but like different vibe up there. You go up there and
It's
you're
a
like, I look so lame right now. Someone will compliment your outfit, 100%. Like they just don't have that thing of like, yeah, Melbourne, great coffee, black clothes. Like it's like the sun is out, everything is cool here.
Yeah. But we also had Kylie Minogue, and she was from Melbourne. And yeah, Kylie was she's a global superstar. I know where her parents live, in Toorak. But yeah, it's a bit funny, isn't it? But yeah, LA is definitely the place to be. I was there for like a month. I was obsessed with it. Fell in love with a 49-year-old. Stupid.
And like, I also kind of feel like in terms of like, even like festivals, in terms of like who's headlining festivals in Australia, I think that's like seen like a massive change, because I feel like in the past, when, you know, I worked a lot as like a booker, and I feel like every time we will always come down to the same freaking question, which is who's going to be our headliner, because I felt like anytime that we were thinking about headlining, we would go to like the same, like, you know, like rock kind of like bands and like, you know, like dudes strumming guitars, whatever. Like, I'm not going to say the name, but I'm thinking it. But, you know, and then, you know, it will be kind of like, oh, what about if we bring the Avalanches, you know, like what about if we do like Vampire Weekend, you know, and you would kind of be stuck in the 2000s a lot. You know, it would be kind of like, it's, you know, like still kind of like going back to that kind of like indie Tumblr, you know, like guitar band era, and just kind of like stuck in this loop. And then I really feel like what happened was that during lockdowns, you know, Gen Z obviously started wanting completely different things, because they were like on TikTok and like wanting to dance, wanting to celebrate, wanting to sing catchy songs. And, you know, bookers after the lockdowns were kind of like, what are we going to give them? You know, and they kept thinking like, oh, we're going to have to like bring someone down. You know, we're going to have to export the dance act. We're going to have to export the pop artist. We're going to have to like, you know, someone pull like, you know, get like Doja on speed dial, you know what I mean? And it became really hard because those pop stars are really expensive, A, and B, they never want to come to Australia because it's like so far away. It's not really like, you know, financially that good unless you're like doing your own tour. So it was kind of like, you know, 2022 or something. And then I felt like the music industry was like, hey guys, I have an idea. Why don't we start like fostering more local pop acts? And everyone was like, oh my God, genius. Like, you know, like that's such a good thing. Let's give them money. Let's pay them. Let's like elevate them. Let's like manage them, book them, like put them in like headliners. Like, hey, it's an act that makes people dance. Let's book them, you know, like headliner kind of thing. And it's actually been really nice to see that has led to all these emerging artists that are super young. Like a lot of them are just 18. Become headliners in like a lot of festivals and things like that. So I think, to answer a little bit your question, just as someone, I guess, working as a booker, we've been wanted this for a really long time, but I think the music industry has been looking for it overseas, because overseas is more normalized and there's a million of them, but it's always easier to foster the local pop artists, because it's cheaper, it's more it's cheaper, more accessible, and obviously you're helping the music industry grow at a local level. So, yeah.
I just have a quick point. I don't know if it has anything to do with anything, but Australia's really fucking weird, okay? Because, first of all, White Australia shouldn't exist. And second of all, Triple J has a massive monopoly on what people listen to, and they've got like a kind of chokehold on everything. And I think it's like, did anyone see like Matt Healy, the singer of the 1975, like fully like called out Triple J, who was like, you never play our music, which makes no sense because the 1975 are one of the biggest bands in the world, and they're coming out. They've probably already sold out like however many arenas they've booked. but like the singer, like on Twitter, was like, you know, when Triple J shared that 1975 were touring, the singer like called them out and was like, "Why haven't you played any of our music ever?" And they're like, "It's Triple J, like it's the only youth radio station in the country." Whereas like in America, the UK, you've got heaps of different ones, whereas Australia, it's just the one. And I think that makes things really difficult because there's so many artists, but there's only so much airtime, you know? And like, fuck
Yeah, I
Triple
think
J.
you're like, if we're talking about shifting culturally, one of the big things we've probably got to do in the next few years is like have a big old overhaul of Triple J. Big old, it's either got to go or it's got to change because, they're starting to hit this point where like you're reading the comment section and everyone's like, who is this artist? Never heard of them. Or people being like, you just like did this article about these 5 artists that we should know about and we knew about them 5 years ago. So I think, there's...
It's because it's run by an old white man called Richard Kingsmill. And, when Camp Cope first started, he was like, "Oh, I don't really want to play Camp Cope." And it's like, bitch, we played the Opera House 3 times. Like, fuck you. Anyway, so I think Richard Kingsmill needs to be fired. I know. I don't care if I'm not going to get played in Triple J ever again. I don't give a fuck. Because we're going to abolish Triple J. We're carving a new path. We're abolishing it. Anyway, don't cancel me.
I wanted to add to the point of, in terms of Triple J, and I'm not entirely sure what their demographic is, what their largest demographic is in Australia. I assume it might be a more regional demographic, but that's just an assumption. I did my first tour that I did this year, support tour, was with your very Triple J, the Rubens. I love them. I think they're great. I know that they have quite a specific demographic, and it was very nerve-wracking because I went deep. When I say deep, I mean deep into regional Victoria. Like, just imagine the Rubens, Ashwarya, like that. Those two, I don't know how, but anyway, great experience. Some of the best people that I met in the industry, but I was very nervous going into it because I was like, am I going to get something thrown at me because I'm out here singing biryani at a Rubens show in regional Victoria. And I just think about the Triple J audience and the demographic. But I just wanted to add to that point that experience was very eye-opening for me because I came out of those shows every night with audiences reacting to the type of music that I was making in a really positive way. And it wasn't... I did have some sort of reservations in terms of like, I'm just going to have a very silent audience just staring at me like, what the hell is going on right now? There's like 3 tempo changes in one song and what is she doing? But it was very eye-opening for me, and I kind of thought about the fact that if Triple J was playing a slightly more diverse, mix of artists, these audiences, these demographics are very much going to accept that. It's really what you put in front of people. It's not about, I feel like they do think a lot about, this indie rock punk band is going to be exactly what we want this year on our top ad for this week. That they're going to do great. And I'm not going to lie, there's the same sort of 5 or 6 bands that you hear every week whenever they put out music. But if they started diversifying that a little bit, I'm very, very positive that those demographics are also going to jump on that wavelength as well. It's really what you put in front of people. So yeah.
Cool. So thank you so much to the 3 of you. I'm literally so excited for the future of music in general here, but especially pop. I will obviously, keeping such a close eye on all of you. I mean, you're going to see me like in a lot of your shows front row, telling people not to Shazam, and whatnot. But also, I think you should all, look, again, I've been around for 7 years. Seriously, like calling out people and being in boardrooms where I'm like, what the are you all talking about? Like, you know, like you're all toasting here that you figured out that hip hop is a thing. I'm going to sit here and be like, you're all like, how do you get this job? You know? But I just really, really want to like tell you all that like it is changing. It's changing really rapidly. It's being driven by young people. And at the end of the day, the music industry is a business. And they're running out of money until they start accepting people like you, because you are the people that younger generations want. So we're going to celebrate here today that you're going to be literally taking over the world. Like, you know what I mean? You already are doing it, but I'm so excited. Thank you so much for talking today. And thank you everyone in the audiences. And now we're going to go into a break. You want to...
Oh, I also just want to thank you for hosting this beautiful panel. Thanks, Triana. And Music Victoria and the Victorian Music Development Office often do research, and I just thought it might be worth sharing that you don't need Triple J because music discovery is happening on YouTube. So that's where you need to put your music. So yeah, just to share that, give you hope, give you inspiration that, yeah, absolutely we can change the world. So thank you, everyone. And now I'm really pleased to share that we have some food. So come have a snack.
Shout out to A1 Bakery doing the catering today.
So come get something to eat and a drink, and then we'll obviously let you know when the next one's going to start.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
I just wanna feel something. I just wanna feel something. I just wanna feel alive. I just wanna feel something. I just wanna feel something. I just wanna feel something. I just wanna feel alive.
It's a resolution of black and white mind balloons floating up to colourful. Or is it separation you put into your coats and sand, waiting for the world to start again? Take a take. Is this how you're feeling? Falling with the world tonight, colorized and beautiful. Slide the line. Is this how you're healing? Out there in the paradigm, waiting for a cavalcade to come again. Take a take.
Black light links with color, sudden long and horizontal outlines of star, a sudden draft and quick chill, a single snowflake falls, and that is all. That is all. The world's face hidden under folding wheels. Waiting for the world to start again. Waiting for the world to start again. Waiting for the world to start again. Waiting for the world again. We're walking through it, walking through the nightmare. Watch the worker bees as they're working for it, working through the night shift. Oh, we're walking through it, and I'm hoping for a little June. Watch the worker bees as they're working for it, working through the night shift. I'm riding around on my car's low. What you waiting for? I feel like I hit the lotto. What you waiting for? I'm riding around in my girl's eye. What you waiting for? We're riding around just to get by. What the fuck you waiting for? I'm riding around in my car's low. What you waiting for? I feel like I hit the lotto. What you waiting for? I'm riding around in my girl's eye. What you waiting for? We're riding around just to get by. What the fuck you waiting for? I don't got the hat, no, I don't got reason to lie. I don't need your drama, I don't need you to surprise. You don't gotta say it, cause I know that you don't like me. You and all your friends can open wide, go on and bite me. I know I'm some shit, and I'm cool with it. You can't tell me shit, don't come and share your dialect. Riding around your city like the cops now. Cause there's no way that we're gonna stop now. I'm riding around in my car's low. What you waiting for? I feel like I hit the lotto. What you waiting for? I'm riding around in my girl's eye. What you waiting for? We're riding around just to get by. What the fuck you waiting for? I'm riding around in my car's low. What you waiting for? I feel like I hit the lotto. What you waiting for? I'm riding around in my girl's eye. What you waiting for? We're riding around just to get by. What the fuck you waiting for? I know it sounds strange, but I used to count change on the counter at the grocery store. The bags I would arrange. Now his face is looking kind of flustered. He didn't know that I was my own hustler. Baby, understand, I don't need a man. Fuck me or I'll fuck you worse than take off to Japan. He thought I couldn't cross the street without holding his hand, and that if he did his dirt, he'd get off with a reprimand. Oh no, no, oh my. Now we're riding around your city with the top down. Riding around your city like the cops now. Oh no, riding around your city with the top down. Cause my passenger is pretty, we won't stop now. I'm riding around in my car's low. What you waiting for? I feel like I hit the lotto. What you waiting for? I'm riding around in my girl's eye. What you waiting for? We're riding around just to get by. What the fuck you waiting for? I'm riding around in my car's low. What you waiting for? I feel like I hit the lotto. What you waiting for? I'm riding around in my girl's eye. What you waiting for? We're riding around just to get by. What the fuck you waiting for?
El ritmo circadiano no lo tengo muy sano. Me acuesto en la mañana, anoche pa'l cubano. Bailamos pegadito con swing, bebecito. Labios de muñeca, sabor a mojito. Amiga americana, le suena el acento. Que aprenda a rebotar y que empiece el evento. Pa' arriba, pa' abajo, pa' el centro y pa' adentro. La zona de gozar pa' dejar lo que siento. Rico, mami me tiene loquito. Si me empieza a bailar no me quito. Sueño contigo y levito. Rico, mami me tiene loquito. Si me pongo a pensar no me explico. Bailo contigo y derrito. Mami dámelo. Dice que no cae como dominó. Tiene ganas de jugar, mami cómo no. Yo le di la mano y luego dominó. Se le mía lo que pase, dice lo que le nace. Bienvenida a la rumba, mami cambia la frase. I just hit a bottle to myself on my own time. Blacked out with a backyard, I'm beyond my rico. Mami me tiene loquito. Si me empieza a bailar no me quito. Sueño contigo y levito. Rico, mami me tiene loquito. Si me pongo a pensar no me explico. Bailo contigo y derrito.
I feel my brains like
Okay, everybody, come take your seats. Come take your seats so we can get started with the next keynote. Come take your seats. I've got one in there. Ah. Hopefully your bellies are full. Got your drinks. You're refreshed. Had a bathroom break. Come take your seats. But I love it that everyone is still talking and making friends and just vibing off the day. Hopefully you've loved the panels as much as I have. I would also comment, we talked briefly about the Melbourne, Sydney and the different vibes. And look, I've got it on good authority that when people turn up for a radio interview in Sydney, they dress up and they're on time. Where in Victoria, they're a little bit more casual. They're keen, but, you know, the tram's probably late or they got stuck in the rain. So we try and definitely play it down. All right, it looks like we've almost got everyone back in. Oh, they're just posing at the back for a photo. I hired the guy who's delaying our start, so it's kind of my own fault. All right, I'll give this back. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, hi everyone. I hope you enjoyed some A1 snacks, and we've now come to one of my most exciting moments in this event. We are going to be doing a keynote. It's going to be hosted by one of my favorite people in NARM's music community. Her name is Kiki Anna. She is the mother of House of Divine. She is a trailblazer in NARM's community. She's been doing some of the most exciting ballrooms events, and House of Divine is NARM's first ballroom house. So please, everyone, give it up for Kiki Anna as well.
There was a stool there, but I was like, fuck that. I'm just gonna sit with my children. I need moral support for this. This is too much. Hello, everyone. My name is Kiana Divine Arichi. I am the mother of House of Divine and the overseer of the Royal International House of Arichi. One more time. Nah. All right, so the reason that I'm on here today is that they wanted me to talk about club movements, the club scene in general, and pretty much where to go to if you want to go out and have a night. Right? Before I begin and talk about all of that, I want to give a bit of a background on myself, just so you know where I'm coming from. So I've been a performer and a dancer since I was 14 years old. I've done many different dance styles, well, specifically street dance and club styles. I've done hip-hop. I've been in the choreography scene. I've done house, locking, breaking, and now really into voguing, and it's been my life for like the past 3 or 4 years now with my house. Hi, house. Um, and most people know of the club scene as the 3Ds. This is what I was talking about with my girls. The 3Ds, it's about drinking, drugs, and dancing, right? And for most people, it's just about getting away from work. It's getting away from family issues or whatever. It's just you having fun with your girls, right? Cool. That's for most people. And to me, it really depends on the music where most people go to. There's spaces that have jazz. Like one of them is Toffintown. Has anyone been to Toffintown? On a Tuesday night, it's really cute. They do this improv jazz situation. They say whatever that's on their mind, and everyone just dances and drinks, and that's really cute. We have Chapel Street. Who's been to Chapel Street? Yeah. Chapel Street to me is like your black and white clubbing situation where it's mainly R&B, hip hop. Majority of the people in there are usually people who enjoy hip hop. So they're usually cis, hetero people. For me, I go there sometimes with my girls, but that's not really the vibe. Then we have Smith Street, which is more catered to queer and drag performers. Like if you want to go watch some drag performers, Smith Street is definitely the one. And then there's spaces like Miscellanea, Rooftop Bar. I wouldn't say that it is catered for the cutie BIPOC really, but we have cutie BIPOC curators that are actually sitting at the front here and that I'm going to be in the panel with. So if you send up Mira. All right, sorry. Girl, we're going to make this casual. Yeah, so we have Miss Mira, mother of House of Silky. Thank you. We have Seafrim, also known as Charlotte. Yes, co-curator, founder of Dati. And then we have Miss Zavara, also known as Sevzar. Ow. So these people are the ones who trailblazed to what I see as the club scene, right? And within the club scene, the main genre that is playing is house. And who loves house? House is the one. And historically, it's been the genre that really brought people together. So if you don't know, house originated in Chicago, popularized in gay clubs, and it was catered for Black, Latinx, and the trans girls would come there to just have a vibe. But also, house music has allowed a lot of dancers to actually explore their dancing and create these styles within the club scene, and that's why it's called club styles. There's street styles, and then you have club styles, like house dancing. I was gonna give you like a 1-2, but I was like, no. We have locking as well, like, oh, now I just want to dance. And then we have voguing, right? And the thing about, oh, girl, don't film me. The thing about house music is that, music in general is that people who make music leave an imprint of themselves within the music, right? And that's why I think house has been there for such a long time, and it always radiates everywhere and brings all the cutie BIPOC community in there because of the shared, I was gonna say shared trauma, but like shared experiences. And that when you listen to house, that you just want to dance. You just want to keep grooving, right? And you don't even have to talk to anyone because it's loud as fuck. But you making eye contact with someone and just dancing, you're sharing so much emotion, so much energy into that it's becoming like a relationship. And that's why a lot of these dance styles were created, was because they would jive to the music and figure out what kind of moves they want to give and start forming these styles. And there's so many dance styles as well that are inspired by other styles and from a different demographic. For example, voguing. Have you heard of voguing? Come on. If you haven't, what the fuck? Voguing, especially in the early days, has a lot of influence in breaking, has been influenced by breaking, popping, and locking, right? And where does that happen? At the clubs, right? So people would be coming to the clubs and sharing their ideas and sharing their movements. And that's why I think clubs are so beautiful, right? The events that I was talking about before that really welcomes the girls, by girls I mean the trans community and the cutie BIPOC community, one of them is Dati, who was curated and produced by Miss Mira and Miss Charlotte. right? We have Umami as well, which is produced and, curated by Miss Savara. And we also have Escandalo tonight, which my daughter is performing at, right? And in these spaces, these are one of the only spaces where queer people of color, trans people of color can come through and really be themselves. Not a lot of spaces are safe for us to go to, and I don't really think it's just the curator who is responsible for that safety and for that inclusivity and the energy. It's the music, it's the bouncers. I was like, well, that's really loud. And just the whole vibe in general. And the main question that Triana asked me actually was that, where do I think the scene is going to go in terms of the Melbourne nightlife? I really think that it's gonna stay the same. Not a lot of people are really open to change, especially in like all these politics. There's still gonna be cis hetero people who want everything to be the same. Even if they don't want it to be the same, they still allow it to happen, right? I can't say for myself that I can go to any club and be like, I'm not gonna get groped. I'm not gonna be, feeling some sort of way because people are staring at me. But at Dati, Umami, Escandalo, Bon Bon, what else? Girls, what else? Exactly. Those three. That's it. That's all we have. And to us, honestly, it feels like church. When we leave the space, we feel energized. We feel together with the community. So it's not even about the drugs, drinking, or the dancing. It's connecting with community. It's seeing what artistic energy they're going to bring forward every time they go out, right? And I was talking to Miss Mira before in the green room, is that we don't even need to take drugs to have fun. The music will carry us through. It's the essence of the space and the history of the music, history of ourselves that we carry when we dance and when we perform, right? It's the space where we feel like we're the Beyonce or whoever, Tiana Taylor, Rihanna, that we want to be, right? And I think as well that there's a lot of influence in ballroom. There's a lot of influence of ballroom within the club nights now because first, the curators are in the scene. Second, we carry ourselves as icons, TBH. Like we carry ourselves with so much energy, so much power that it is infectious. And wherever we go, wherever we vogue down, wherever they bring the beats, the girls are gonna come, right? So I really hope that there's gonna be many more events like this, or that a lot of people come through to these spaces with the right mindset, right? And the right energy so that we can push this movement. Like the way that ballroom is a movement, that club night as a movement becomes a thing. Because what we have is beautiful. And I wish that more people could see it. That's it. Right. So you're probably wondering why I have my kids over here. They're just chilling. There's a little performance that they're going to give you, just to give you a taste of what the energy is like in these spaces, right? So DJ, pump the beat. Who wants to go first? Okay, we'll go from left to right. Yeah, can you turn it up? Alright, my daughter Natty. Divine, D-E-V-I, divine. Kitty cat meow, ow, kitty cat meow, kitty cat meow, kitty cat pop, let's go. Pop, to the pop, to the feminine, what? Pop. I'm from Estonia, give me what? Give me what? Give me when? Give me now. Give me what? Give me third. Pop, ow. Alright, we have our stuff of time. Kia, let's go. Divine. Pint. Alright, bitch. Hi. Are you seeing this? Listen to my cock. Listen to my pussy. Listen to what? Listen to me. Listen to what pussy? I'm looking for my Johnny. Where is my Johnny? I'm looking for my, looking for my. You're giving me my Johnny. Give me what? Huh? Meow. Give me what? Give me what? Let's go. Cut. All right. To the point to the yard, they're like, it's better than yours, damn right, it's better than yours, I can teach you, but I have to toss my milkshake, bring to the point to the yard, they're like, better than yours, damn right, I can teach you, but I have to charge, nah. Sorry y'all, this dress is so short, that's it. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any question, is there a mic? Are we opening it up for questions? One in the back. No. Oh, that's a heavy question. Well, it actually started with, this is really shameful, but nogging. No, but T, like I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Like when I first started, nogging is not voguing. It's appropriating what voguing is, right? For example, RuPaul's Drag Race. Yeah, the death drop situation, because it's not called a death drop. Well, I was a part of this crew that was in Brisbane, and it was led by now mother of the House of Alexander, Ella. And back in the day, we would be competing in a lot of dance competitions. And in these dance competitions, oh my God, I'm puffed out, girl. I gave you like 2 seconds and I'm dead. And in these competitions, you are asked to give 3 to 4 dance styles, right? To give like the whole experience. And the scene in Australia isn't really that well versed back in the day, back in 2014. So everyone was just copying what was online, right? So that's how I touched on voguing. And we were the only trans and queer dance crew in all of Australia. That's why for us it felt like finally we're getting represented. But of course at that time, we didn't know that nogging was a thing, right? And we had no one to really go to learn from it. But after that, when we all like split up and did our own thing, I started to research and started to do training for myself and then going overseas to learn, right? I'm so puffed out, girl. I was in LA learning from technically my first ever like Vogue teacher, technically my mother. What's her name? Oh my God. Wait, Sissy, remind me. Mother of Ninja in New York and also in Italy. Jessica's house. What's her name? She's like orange hair. No. She's the runway diva. Yeah. But anyway, I forgot her name. I'm sorry. But I went to her classes. But she was subbing for Deshaun Wesley. And I was like, okay, this is the one. Everything that I learned from online and my own research was solidified when I started doing her courses. And I started getting connected with the House of Slay, technically who trailblazed the scene in Sydney. And yeah, been a part of it since then. But honestly, majority of the journey of ballroom is your own research. Dolores Ninja, that's the one. Oh my god. Yeah, no. No, she's cute. She's cute. Yeah, she was on Legendary as well. Yeah, the thing that I would say to you is, yeah, do your own research so that when you do come into the spaces, that you're not nogging and feeling like you're the one. Because once you know more about the history, the music, the dance style, the art form, then you start forming more respect. And yeah, the more you learn, the more you know that you have much more to learn. So it really humbles you down. So come into these spaces and just absorb. Yeah, and also teach class at O2. Mondays, but also no shade, like no shade to O2. I love O2. But girl, people who come to classes or want to learn about voguing are the ones who experience the most. And you know, if you're queer, trans, and as an artist, it's hard to make money. It's hard to pay $20 every class. And you keep this within yourself. I'm being honest, y'all. Sometimes it's not giving. Like, go to a free workshop, go to a jam. Yeah, watch the balls online, learn a move or two. But just don't carry yourself like you're the one after you learn like 5 moves. That's my tip. Anyone else? Any questions? No other questions? All right. I'll work. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, of course. Which one? Sorry. Okay. House of Divine, like the House of Silky and the individual curators, we just have it wherever. Like, it is an underground culture that is now somewhat going into mainstream, that we just post about it. We pick a venue, we do it there. You just gotta be in the know to know. Yeah.
These these spaces are protected. Like to know, like it's for a reason, because there's not a lot of safety. And so like being on the outside and wanting to come to these spaces, it's important to really consider why, and like the space that you hold up. Why are you there? You know, like who's at the front? They deserve to be at the front for a reason. It's like there's so much beauty and it's so sacred that has to be honored. That always has to be in the back of your mind too. Sorry about that too.
No, for real. Like, I think that's why it's so gatekept and there's not much of it, is that we need to keep our safety at the forefront of everything. And if you are a person who wants to be a part of it, even as a spectator, you also need to do your own homework. And not in terms of like the dance moves, but just the culture in general, and why it's important that in these spaces we prioritize Black bodies, we prioritize trans bodies first before anyone. Because in other spaces, that's not the case ever, right? Yeah. That's why even like in balls, when I curate them, I release a few tickets first before anything, because I know that there's a massive gaze of people. Wait. Oh, sorry. Massive gaze of people being like, I want to be a part of it. I want to see this, but also I have to prioritize my people first before anything. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Any other questions? We good? All right. Oh, yes. I think if I were in your position, I would come to the sessions first, or try and find someone that you can connect to who is a person of color and who knows about the scene, and then allow them to invite you in, or tell them that you're interested and invite you in. I think it's harder for us to accept new people in the space when there's a whole gang of cis white people coming into the space and we're like, what's going on? Is this a raid? Like, what's this? No, for real, because it feels off. And again, that the space is sacred, that you want to protect it. But yeah, find someone that you can connect to and be like, I want to go here, let's go together. Just don't bring any straight men. That's it. No shade. And that's no shade. It's just tea. Boy, yeah. Maybe it's giving like, if you come with your boys, it's giving girls and the gays and the let's go on this side, boys on this side. Yeah. And we really support each other. So like, if you go on my Instagram or anyone else's Instagram, we will post each other's events. You'll find it. That's about it. All right, let's go, Triana. Thank you for having me.
Just going to quickly rearrange the furniture. Cool. All right. Now we're going to have on stage the next panel. And the next panel, I think, like we did before with the pop panel, it was about a cultural shift. And I think for this next panel, the main cultural shift that we're like looking at is changes in the club scene. So please, everyone, give it up for our next panelist. If they're all ready to come, please come through. Yay! How hot is this? Like, I feel like this is the lineup I want to see. Actually, this is the lineup I've seen at the club, but like, oh my God. Okay. Okay, so first of all, we have, of course, Kiki. Thank you so much for your keynote. And then we have Soju Gang, DJ Soju Gang, Sky.
Sorry for being so late.
Then we have Charlotte, or aka DJ Seafrim.
Hello.
And Mira, aka DJ Miresha. So together they are the House of Dati, and also Mira is the mother of Silky.
Dutty Worldwide.
Dati Worldwide. And then next to me I have Steph, also known as DJ Steph Zah, who is the founder of Umami. So please, big round of applause for everyone. I'm actually so excited to have all of you sitting here with me today, because I feel like, as a queer woman of color myself, over the past 7 years, I truly feel like it has been in all of your parties and events that I have found a space to be me. And touching on what you were saying before, Kiki, I really feel like it has been these places over the past, 4 years that I felt like I found a place where me and my Latinx friends especially were able to find like a place to just be without being judged. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to all of you from the bottom of my heart. Yeah.
The feeling is mutual.
So I feel like, obviously it's been, when I was sort of designing the questions for this panel, I wanted to, talk about this, like you've said, there's been a cultural shift. We're seeing, these parties and these communities that I think for so long, when I was going at the beginning, to these parties, they were very underground. My first one was Umami, which was run upstairs at Laundry Bar. And it was basically like such a small group of friends, and then, next thing I know, I'm going to like a sold out Umami show, like recently at Miscellanea. So I feel like there's been this like really big growth. And so I think what I wanted to kind of explore with all of you today was sort of how you feel about it, how you navigate it. So my first question is, I think, kind of bringing it back to the beginning. I think I would love to know, what was the moment where you decided, that's it, I'm going to start, Umami, Dati, DJing, House of Divine? Like, when was that moment? And maybe we can start with Kiki over there.
For me, I think it was the lack of lineage, and it's a really deep thing to think about, is that growing up in a heavily Catholic Filipino household, I had no one to connect to. I was the only one that was trans in that family, or even queer. Yeah, guys. So having a family and forming the house was like the most important thing to me, and having this lineage where I can pass things on and create things with my family, that was the biggest drive of the house and like ballroom really for me, was having that lineage and connection and safety within my people.
So when you say lineage, do you mean like family? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, family, and also just the ability to pass things down to the next generation. Because once I'm gone, boy. Like, I have my children who will pass on the knowledge I've given them and opportunities I've given them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that to me is so important, because I never had that.
Beautiful. And how about you, Sky?
I think mine was kind of like a gradual build-up. As an Aboriginal woman, when I was first going out at Can't Slay back in the day, I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me. When I did go out with family or whatever, we weren't allowed into spaces. I grew up with family, very like sort of government background. My mum works, human services, Department of Justice. We are heavily involved in our own community at home back in Dandenong as well. And I understood, I think from such an early age, the power of visibility and the power of holding space. So, I started out as little club rat that turned very quickly into club host and promoter. I would make sure that if people were coming in using my name, coming to see me, that I was going to look after them. And that came along with me DJing as well, making sure that if I'm playing somewhere, if my people can't get in, I'm not going. or, you know, making sure that I'm putting people down at the door and making sure that they know who my community is and that they're going to be able to hold space and be able to feel comfortable in that. And I guess as I grew more power, I guess we'll call it power, in the sort of like clubbing sort of nightlife scene, it turned into, you know, me demanding certain things, being like, you know, we need more events like this because we don't have spaces for us. You know, like what you said before, like no straight white men. And as harsh as that may sound, it's like they have the power to move into any space they want and to be able to hold and own that space. They should not be able to have that same sort of power where, you know, if they're entering into our spaces, are they really ours anymore? Do we feel safe? Do we feel like the same kind of acknowledgement of why those spaces were created and for the people who they were created for still going to be as important and as powerful if people can feel like they can just rock up and make anything theirs? So, yeah, I guess my journey has been sort of like a gradual, like, I've always had that, you know, we need more, we want more, we deserve more. But it was more so like, got my foot through the door, then I'd be pushing my other feet through the door, and then I'd be dragging my cousins in, and then dragging their friends and family in, and kind of just taking up the whole space. So the more, and it's going to continue to happen, the more power I get, the more, the more, I was going to swear. Can I swear?
Yes.
I'm like,
Bro, I was swearing throughout
I
my
don't
whole
see it.
okay, yeah,
Don't
the
see
more
it.
power I get, the more shit I'm going to get done. So it's just going to be a continuous build up.
How about you, for both of you or each of you individually?
Yeah, I guess for me, like, I grew up going to, I guess, doofs and raves at like a very young age. So that was sort of my intro into, I guess, music, and that's where I sort of found my love for it. And in those spaces, you know, when I was underage, I did not see any person of color DJing, let alone a woman DJing. It was literally just all white men. And, you know, like, my aspiration was always, you know, I always wanted to be sort of a DJ as well. So I would literally be front row, like, you know, air DJing as the DJ would be DJing, like, oh shit, okay, we're doing that. You know what I mean? But, like, these spaces were not for me. Like, you know, I came in to these spaces and, like, you feel uncomfortable, and music was the only thing that sort of, you know, kept me there, really. But I feel like all of us, really created these spaces out of necessity. Like, if we don't make these spaces and create these spaces, who's going to do it? So we got to be the ones to do it, I guess.
Do either of you remember when was the moment you were like, I'm going to do it?
Oh. Well, I guess when I was, like, young, I went to a rave at Cool Room in Footscray. When they used to have the abandoned warehouses. I don't know if anyone remembers that. No, this is 3 years before that. Yeah, and I just remember, like, walking into that space, and I was like, I want to do this, pretty much. And, like, I got my first pair of decks, my first controller, and I was just, like, DJing in my bedroom. And then, like, you know, when I turned 18, like, Umami was one of the first places that booked me, you know? So, like, it's all family. We're friends before anything else.
Yeah, there's a few moments for me. One of the first ones being like traveling internationally. I went to London in 2015, and it was right when I started DJing, and I went to Pussy Palace, shout outs. So Pussy Palace was definitely like a moment where I went there and I was like, oh my God, they're playing like all of the tracks that I'm playing. And I'm hearing like, you know, R&B, hip-hop samples with global club sounds, and it's a room full of QT BIPOC, and it was something I'd never experienced in this country. So I was like, okay, I'm either gonna move there so I can have that, or create something here, because the ballroom community, so for me, it's been intrinsically linked, because my house, House of Silky, our group of club kids really is how we like were born, and we started throwing the aftermath balls for most of the sleigh balls. So House of Sleigh shout outs, First House of the Country, Mother Benji Ra shout outs. Yeah, so basically we did like aftermath balls, like for sleigh, for sissy ball, yada yada. And it was kind of those moments where I was like, okay, no, this is the purpose. Like I went there to bring back what I want the Kiki scene here to be. So yeah, so those were kind of the moments that inspired it, but then also seeing like, you know, the diaspora, the indigenous community here, coming together, which is like so personal to this country. Yeah.
Hi. So I come from a family that is massive, and we have plenty of weddings, and we always have celebrations. And the best part of having that is just dancing and music and seeing female bodies just be free and do themselves, you know. And that translated into my young teenagehood. I used to go out all the time to the clubs with my girls, and we used to always navigate these like cis white hetero spaces and just make it our own. But sometimes I just wanted to have that space for myself and not have to come in and be like, all right, I've got to have a guard up, I've got to have my fists ready at if it needs to be, you know, like it doesn't have to be like that, you know. And maybe in 2018, I'd say, we started Umami because out of necessity, you know, like that's a key theme here. There wasn't really spaces for people who are BIPOC and or queer and trans, you know. And many people don't know this, but actually Sky started Umami with me first. And then Sky went and did her own thing, which is so fine. And that was our beginnings. And then ever since then, we just haven't looked back. Like it's been really beautiful. And the best thing for me is seeing the community come together and just actually enjoy themselves. And like Charlotte said before, we're friends first before anything else. You know, sure, this is a music business we exist in and the model we have to navigate. But at the end of the day, like if someone can afford to pay, just give them free entry. You know, just it's just all about doing simple things like that. Like it's family values.
Because it's harder to be kind than it is to be cunt.
Per.
I mean, yeah, I feel like, you know, like I definitely remember like kind of like the first Umami parties, because those were my first kind of like, you know, kind of events like this. I remember the first one I went to, I cried. I went to the bathroom and I cried because
so
like
sweet.
I actually felt like it was the first time that I didn't feel like othered. You know what I mean? It was the first time that I wasn't being read in the wrong ways. In fact, nobody was like reading me. I was just a person having fun. I was just an energy. So I feel like something that I find really interesting and that I really wanted to kind of like bring today to the table as well is that obviously in recent years, you know, I would say even like in the past sort of like year, there's been this like growth, I guess, in like, you know, people wanting to go out to like really cool parties and like, you know, the queer scenes, you know, there's all this, I think, pop cultural things that are making a lot of these things very trending. And, you know, I kind of wanted to know a little bit about how you navigate this growth for all of you, you know, because there's obviously these things that start with community, then the community expands, but then it also kind of reaches more mainstream kind of like, you know, like spaces. And I kind of wanted to start by asking you, Stev, I found it so interesting that when you were asked to do Boiler Room, you know, like when I saw that you were playing Boiler Room and then I saw that you were making it like an invite only, and not only an invite only, but it was like, you know, for trans, Indigenous, First Nations, you know, like queer people, like everything like that. So I really wanted to know a little bit about, first of all, how you came about this decision, but I think most importantly, how did Boiler Room react? Because I don't think that has been done before. Like if you could give me a little bit of insight about how was it received and, you know, afterwards, or, you know, did it start any trends? Like, have you heard about them being like, oh, we're going to start doing this monthly? I don't know, you know?
Well, I'm all about giving credit where credit's due, and we weren't the first to do that. Phil did that as well too in New Zealand, Half Queen and Lady Shaka, and they made so they did similarly but differently. They didn't market their night as a Boiler Room. They marketed as a normal night, and then they released it as a Boiler Room afterwards too. So that way the community came first. For us too, if you're a big institution like Ballroom, you know, and you're coming to us and saying, hey, like we want to book you, like, you know, and want to film your parties, you have to let us do us first and foremost, you know, number one. Number two, if you want to film us being our most authentic self, you have to understand that our community has to be there first, you know. So what we did was we, for people who don't know, we put the ticket link up as private and we just shared around community. I said, give this to this person, give this to this person, blah, 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 but we still gave free tickets to people who are Indigenous and trans women of color as well. And I think it was for the best anyway, because it was the most authentic way to have that umami essence. Like, we still maintain our, you know, our modus operandi, and it's still translated on camera as how it wouldn't as well. But that's a difficult thing about working with, you know, big, I guess, you know, with the big people, you know, like, is that you still have to find a way to do you, but then also get paid. You know, and it's like one thing I'm still learning to navigate as well. Sometimes you have to say no, sometimes you have to say yes, but that's pretty much what we did. And we just prioritize community as well. Like, I think that's really important too. Like, if you're beginning something, no matter what, even if it's like a clothing line or, I don't know, like a music label or whatever, just know what your goal is, stick by it, and don't waver. You know, that's how success comes, essentially, just finding yourself.
And what about for Dati? Because I mean, I'm assuming that, or even like as both of you or the three of you, even as DJs, like, how do you navigate, like, I guess this like growth in this kind of parties, or like the type of music that you play, and you know, like, if you could give me like a bit of an insight on that.
I think it's like learning as you go, because it's like growing probably even less organically than I kind of predicted, just in terms of social media and like TikTok and all these things, so everyone like knows about it, and noticing, you know, a lot of different people that you haven't seen at the previous party coming through to the next one, younger people, and wider reach. So it's an interesting like way to navigate the space to ensure that like everyone still understands the values and intentions, like you were saying, of the space, because it's like almost like you have to reiterate each time so that people understand why we are doing this in the first place, and so it doesn't lose the importance and the impact, and also like the priorities of like why we're doing this in the first place.
Remember, it's inclusive, not exclusive.
Yeah, and I think like for us, a way that we kind of deter certain people from coming into these spaces is we have a tiered ticketing system specifically at Dati. So like, you know, queer, trans, Indigenous people of color will pay a certain amount, and then like allies will pay a little bit extra, just so we can ensure that they know as soon as they're buying the ticket, they know who these spaces are for before they even come into the party. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I also, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about it. You don't have to, but I heard that at the last party, which unfortunately I couldn't come to, but my friends went there and they told me that there was a point when I think it was you who like grabbed the microphone and like asked people of color to come to the front and like, if you want to talk about it, you don't have to, but I found them really super interesting and really beautiful, and I was like, yes.
I think that's just like a standard throughout all of our parties. At some point in the night, someone will grab the mic and remind people of who this space is for. It's just, I guess, like standard, really. And on that specific party, we had Unique from New Jersey come down, who's, you know, a pioneer in her own right of a movement called Jersey Club. So, you know, obviously tickets were going fast, and like, you know, we ended up selling it out. But, you know, one thing we noticed at the start of the night was that there wasn't many POC people. And we were really scared at the start of the night, because we were like, where is all the fam? Obviously, everyone's going to be running on POC time. Everyone's going to be running on ethnic time, so they're going to come late. So it wasn't a worry. But, like, you know, there's all these new spaces, and, like, I just really, like, in that moment, I was just, like, looking, you know, down at all the people coming in. I was like, I really hope that, like, their intentions are pure when they come into this space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was. It was a great night.
Just to reiterate what Charlotte was saying, just to further explain, like, why we feel the need to like say that on the mic is because in so many spaces, you know, those moments that we see like QT BIPOC in the corners, and like you see that at, say, like Yayas or these like weekly events that it's like we have to, you know, for safety reasons, you know, we're kind of in the corner. But this, we want to encourage our community to show up and to dance and to feel that level of safety. So, and expression.
And take up space.
And
pretty much take up space.
How about for you, Sky? I mean, I think particularly maybe as like a DJ, like, do you feel like there's something that you've been doing differently now that there's been this growth, or like, I don't know, maybe it's like more trendy to have like, you know, POC music and DJs of color? Like, how do you feel about this growth?
Well, there's obviously a lot of tokenism that definitely sprouted after the Black Lives Matter movement went global. But I think it's just always holding that intention. I think one of the reasons why these people that are sitting here with me have created these giant communities and have them as strong as they are is because they are people who move with purpose with that. You know, it's this idea of, you know, you guys could like easily just put on an event and then have like little people just run around like doing whatever the fuck that they want. But it's this reiteration of what our purpose is here. Why did we create this space? You know, I think with a lot of people who do put on events like this, sometimes they're thinking short term. Short term is like cute party, cute vibes, quick money, do all this sort of stuff. But it's like when we first started with the Mummy, me and Sev were talking long term. We were talking about what we want to do in a couple of years, being like, we don't want to be a laundry bar forever. We're just doing this because this was offered to us. That was the space that was offered to us, but it's not going to be a laundry bar event. Wanted to do all these bigger things, and we talked about why it was so important for us to be doing this and what can be created out of this, rather than just, you know, a bit cute if we like put on like cute little queer POC oriented night, because like, you know, there's money there, and like it'd just be cute.
Well, this thing, it wasn't money for us. It was just like about enjoying, having fun. Like we made nothing from the first couple of parties.
Not much money.
Yeah, there isn't, and like that's the thing. Like, of course, we got to, you know, pay bills too. But at the end of the day, like, you should always do this first for the culture.
Yeah.
You know, that's how genuine it comes out when you're like, okay, let's just bring all the girls together and just dance.
So I think it's like me always talking about how I know I have power in these spaces. An example would be we were at a festival on the weekend that was just a local one at Footscray Arts. It was their Wominjika Festival. Somebody who works at Footscray Arts that wasn't working had profiled one of my uncles as soon as he walked in. This is an Indigenous specific event. He left, you know, he's a much older man. He was like, you know, like, it's all right, I don't want to get you in trouble. You know, I don't want to start anything here. And he was trying to explain to us, you know, this is part of life. Sometimes this stuff happens. And I was like, bullshit. Like, you know, you might have feel like you grew up in that age where, you know, these are things that we have to take. Hell no. This space was created for us. You're going to walk in there with me. We're going to find that organizer. We're going to yell at him, and he's going to give you free drinks, and we're going to sit there and watch the rest of the acts because this is our space. And furthermore, we're going to find out who this woman was, why she did that in the first place. Even when she wasn't working, she did not have any sort of power whatsoever to be telling security that she should be doing these things in the first place. Like, you're not caring about the community safety. You're caring about how that person made you feel because they're unfamiliar to you. And I think, again, that's why these spaces, you know, they could have easily blown up and then taken over like Yayas and turned into like no shade to Yayas, but it's like a lot of people that I know that go there are straight white people. I rarely see people of colour there that are queer or just people of colour in general. But it's like these guys hold it in. They're like, you know, this is who this is for. These are who get in here. These are the people who are going to be praised and supported and uplifted in these parts. I know when I have the rare occasion, because my life is so spread thin lately, that I get to come to the ball. Kiki or whoever will jump on the mic and be like, this isn't, you know, what you see on TV. This isn't RuPaul's or whatever. If you can't walk this walk, sit the fuck down. Do not walk in here. Cut. You can't even walk. Your outfit doesn't even fit the theme. Go away. And I think...
I sound like a bitch, but also
No,
like the team.
no.
No, but I like say that with the most love.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though, is that
But-
people who are outside of these communities don't have an understanding. They have a very, what's that called?
Narrow-minded.
You know when horses race, the blinders. They got blinders on.
Tunnel
vision. There we go. They got tunnel vision. They see what they see on media. They see what they see in posts. They see the cute outfits. They see the dancing. They see the music. They see everybody enjoying themselves. But they have no idea about not only the heartache, the pain, the trauma that was the reason why these spaces were created in the first place. But they don't understand, the years of training to dance, or the years it took for people to be on their journey to finally understand and discover and to love who they are, for them to be in that space. This isn't a club night. None of these events are club nights or party nights. They are community spaces, they're community events. They're centers for most people of who they get to connect with people who are like them, because a lot of us don't grow up around other queer people or around other queer people of colour who, even if they do grow up around that sort of stuff, it doesn't mean that that's going to be able to be enough for people to feel at home. And that's, I guess, the short version of what I've been saying here is these are all homes. It's not a club space. It's not an event. People are going home. They're coming to see their friends. They're coming to see their families. That's what it is.
That part. No. Yeah.
Spoken like a true queen.
Girl, you ate that.
And how about you, Kiki? Because I feel like, obviously there's been like a huge, I guess, like rise in like the ballroom kind of like scenes, and I've seen that you've been booked for like way larger events as well. Like, how have you navigated? Well, first of all, congratulations, get that back. But also, like, how have you navigated it?
It's hard. So it definitely was a trial situation of like, okay, I can use these spaces to spread awareness of, the ballroom scene, and to share trans bodies on the floor, and show people what we have, because we're talented. Us queer, trans people of color, BIPOC, we're talented as fuck, and nobody sees that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Fashion Week, do my little dancey dance, and give you all everything that you wish you had this whole event. You know what I mean? For like 10 minutes, I'm gonna give you all that. But then also there's a side of it where, how are we feeling at the end of the night? Do we feel like we were used? Do we feel like it was a circus act? So it's that navigation within that fine line of, am I gonna feel like shit after this, or am I gonna feel empowered? And I actually want to bring this up with Mira as well, like the question, because we are both parents in the scene. How do you feel about that, Sissy?
Yeah, because it's like we have to, even just like, because I've got a chapter in Sydney as well as NAM, so I'm also like navigating gigs that my kids are doing without me being there, and putting a price to our culture, and being like weighing up, how much we need the bag, how much, we're going to feel used, tokenized, everything you just said. I think there's a fine line, and girl, we should definitely talk about World Pride, because there's a lot of things coming up.
I heard.
That I think it's important that we really make sure that we get our worth. Sometimes there is a sacrifice, because it's like, okay, like this is maybe not probably the most soul rewarding performance experience, but at least the management was nice. There was no like hate, or this was a performance, this is not what I get out of a ball. But I'm performing with my sisters, and it's a nice experience, because sometimes it really isn't.
Yeah, sometimes it really isn't. You feel so crap afterwards. Like, I gave you everything on the floor. Doesn't matter how long it was. You're not just seeing my dancing and my abilities. You're seeing me being vulnerable on the floor. You're seeing how much time and effort I put into this art form and how raw it is. I'm not just giving you a cute 1-2 with no face. Like, I'm giving you essence.
Yeah, because the art form also is a metaphor for survival, and it's a metaphor for like how we live our life. And so, you know, it's so deep at the same time as not being that deep, but you know, so it means so much. There was another point, but I forgot.
Yeah, it means so much that actually within the house, I made up this rule of, in the beginning of the year, we're doing gigs just to kind of show everyone that we're here still. And then after that, it's all ballroom. Like, we'll do a month of gigs, and throughout the year, I say no to everything. And that's not because we don't need the bag. Girl, we need money. But it's our safety first. And also, the limelight of those stages can kind of shift the way you navigate within ballroom now, because you think you're performing and you're being supported by everyone, but they're just watching you and enjoying what you're giving, but they don't give a fuck about you afterwards.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I always push to be like, do community things, more community events, because that's where it really matters.
Well, I'm like, whether the question is why World Pride has been running for as long as they have and doesn't have any of you on the committee in the first place.
Girl, same Fringe as well.
Yeah,
Shade.
like
every time
it's like you're profiting. You've grown off such, and Midsummer too, they've grown such a ginormous brand by paying the community members who've made these scenes as huge as they are, as safe as they are, as I guess profitable as they are, but they still don't want to give our people higher up positions. Like there should be a committee that is filled with at least half of community members that are saying, you know, we're representing, this is supposed to represent what our community here is in Australia, in Melbourne, in Sydney, whatever. How can we do that if we don't have those communities here in the first place? How can you say, you know, we are giving the community what they need or what they want when you don't even know what that is, because you don't even know that that community.
Literally, I'm like back and forth emailing as we speak, and like telling people how to do their job, and giving them advice to be like, actually, you need to be putting up these people because these are the ones who have been here longest. You know, my Ai Malika, she is 60-something, trans woman of color, been in Lay Girls. Do we talk about that history? There's so much history, trans history in this country that's not even being spoken about. And then these people are just getting old, lonely, and like being forgotten. No, that can't happen. Yet you're doing the smallest bit of research, reaching out to us, paying us this much. Then we're telling you what to do, and then it doesn't make sense.
Well, the reality is it's always going to be somebody who's easily marketable, somebody who is white or white passing, and somebody who is, you know, cis. At the end of the day, like that's these kind of like major festivals or like major committees will always put these people first because they're easy to digest for a cis hetero audience. And the funniest thing is you're supposed to be a queer, you know, institution that praises and uplifts queer artists. Why are we still moving forward with this idea? Like, it's so outdated, and we're living in 2022, and this is still something we're talking about. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
It's frustrating, and it's heavy to constantly have to fight institutions for your space. Like, you having to email them would have taken you so much like effort just to write those words down. That shouldn't even happen. We talk about this all the time in many panels and a lot of different spaces, on videos, on everything, but nothing seems to happen because all these people in power just have money.
I mean, I kind of feel like, thank you for sharing all that, by the way. I feel like something that I feel like is that it's going to happen when trailblazers like yourselves grow and take those positions as well. And I guess like my question is sort of outside of the type of growth that you're having from, say, external institutions offering you things, right? What are some ways that you would each want to grow, say, in 2023, that perhaps, you know, it's like getting you a step closer or whatnot towards, I guess, changing those problems that we're currently facing? You know, like I'm wondering if any of you maybe is like wanting to start like their own, you know, like insert thing. But I guess my question is like, what's with this kind of growth, you know, that's happening? What is something that excites you about 2023 that perhaps would also sort of like help change and balance, bring some balance, or not even balance, actually, just like fixing the problem, you know? Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Well, number one, I love seeing people come up to me and say like, oh, you know, Umami inspired me to do this, and it's really beautiful. But also, just briefly want to say as well, even though we do parties that are for people who are queer, trans, and BIPOC, I would love to see specific parties for specific cultural identity. You know what I'm saying? Like recently, they popped up a collective that catered towards South Asian music as well, and I want to see more of that from different diaspora in the world. You know, because the term BIPOC is such an umbrella term. You know, like it just chucks all identities that aren't white under like 5 letters. You know, and I want to see more specific parties for people with different cultural identities. You know, I don't know where to go from here.
Is there something that you're like, okay, like the way that I would like something that really excites you with like Umami, that perhaps will help change this kind of like culture, like like if you had command of the growth, so like not the growth that you get from like being asked to do this or do that, like what would that look like for you?
That's a really good question. I haven't thought about that actually.
It's kind of a huge thing to dismantle. Like
It
it's
is, yeah.
such a, you know, like there's an element of like needing to like play the game to then like understand and learn the things of those of power, and while simultaneously like keeping the community sacred and growing that, but like reaching, you know, like being on these panels and things like that, it's like, okay, so I have to be friends with this person to be able to even be in that room. So there's, you know, I don't know, it's interesting because it's like, and then is that even a place I want to be? But I think at the end of the day, like these higher powers, like positions of power are also going to, actually change the culture on a bigger scale and put money where it needs to be, or actually make it more equal.
I think also just needs to be genuine too, no matter what you do and no matter who approaches you, who wants to collab with you, like, you know, if you want to do something else, if people are popping up and doing their own things, it just needs to be genuine, I feel like. You know, a lot of Umami's success is attributed to us just being real and not treating it like a business and actually just treating it like a get-together as well. And the same with Dutty as well, like, and just any other, like, you know, parties that center our community, seeing that genuinity, like, inspires me. And it's nice to see that there is that movement going on now as well. And back to what you were saying as well, I think that, you know, the only real goal in life is to leave a legacy, you know, like to do something that impacts other people, you know, create art, and then in turn inspire people to create art. It's a cycle that just keeps going over and over and over again. And that's the thing that keeps me moving. I'm sure it keeps many of us moving here as well. And seeing other people, you know, start nights and that center different parts of the community, or seeing other people, you know, start DJing because of getting a gig here and so, like that's a movement. You know, there's small baby steps that are happening. And right now it can seem frustrating that, you know, we're not getting, you know, the I wouldn't say praise we deserve, but I guess like we're not getting our roses. But at the end of the day, like, I have hope, and I think that in the future there will be, you know, we won't have to have these conversations as much anymore. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I feel like it would be really cool to like collaborate more, you know, in terms of like our community as well, and do things on a bigger scale, because there's always like, you know, there's all these people in power that, you know, always approaching us to put on things for their events or whatever. But like, why can't we be in those positions where we're the ones dictating, you know, those events and things like that?
Well, was an old saying that like it takes a village, you know, to raise a queen.
Period.
It takes a village, not just one person. Like, it's many people together as well. And like, I agree with Charlotte. Like, I think it'd be like really beautiful and powerful to see a lot of us come together and do certain things. And of course, there will be that, but you know, we have our own thing going on.
Yeah, and I think we also have to talk about like the sustainability of like what we do, and the sustainability of like the music industry. Like, you know, in terms of, you know, getting internationals to play our parties and stuff, we're getting offered like ridiculous prices that should be, you know, for these bigger festivals, you know what I mean? And like, there has to be an understanding that, you know, we're DIY parties, you know, we're the underground, and like, we can't be paying these prices that, places like Pitch or Dark Mofo or whatever are paying these artists as well. So that there has to be a level of understanding from these high institutions as well.
Well, you said something to me once actually that stuck with me. We were talking about a specific touring company that booked a.
Don't say too much.
Yeah, no. But essentially, like, booked a cutie BIPOC performer and gave it to essentially just like these white cis-right hetero dudes to perform at their party. And Charlotte, something very important that stuck with me essentially is that idea that our culture and our community is marketable and you can put a price on that people can pay for, that they can benefit from and profit from. I don't like that idea. And like that really stuck with me. I'm like, that's actually facts. Facts.
Yeah, it's facts because we've been building this global club music. The music that we play, really, you can only get them. You can only hear this type of music at our parties, right? And we've been I guess in our own right in so-called Australia, we've been pioneering this new sound, right? And now, for the past 5 years, we've been doing that, and now it's just coming into the mainstream. So now it's profitable. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Can you say the question again? I heard it the first time, but I want you to rehash it for me, please.
I feel like the question is sort of along the lines of what is the way that you would like to grow? So for example, for you, I guess the type of gigs or projects that Soju Gang does that you think maybe what type of growth would you like to see in your own project that would perhaps help grow the culture in the right ways, I suppose, and fix the issues. Yeah.
So I kind of realized something, I think 2 or 3 years ago, me talking about the power that I had and how I guess, this is going to sound crazy. It's going to make sense. It sounds crazy. But it's kind of building up my legitimacy. And I think as a woman of colour that's especially Indigenous, sorry, this has been annoying me this whole time. That has been something that's been really hard to do, to enter into the scene, to people to want to book you and want to listen to you speak and do all of that. And I feel like I've been building that up because I feel like the more that I build that up, the more I get a say on how things are run, if that makes sense. So it's for the past couple of years, I've been running Sorbets, which is at Sydney Maya Music Bowl. Absolutely huge. It's good curation. I keep emailing you to have me to come do stuff with Divine. Yeah, no, it's okay. But it's this idea of me talking about with my uncle, me being able to be why did this happen? What's going on? Where it's 10 years ago, we wouldn't even been able to get our own space in the first place. So I feel with me, 2023, it's me entering more, because I'm already in it, more into my villain era, where it's where it's just you know what, the way you're doing shit is dumb. And I've emailed people before, in the past 2-3 years, being the way you're running this is stupid. Who put this together? Where are they from? They people in the Aboriginal community don't know who this person is. So why are they on this board? Why are they running these programs? Why are they running these events? People, like I said, it's from this movie where it's how can you help the poor if you've never been poor? How can you help the queer community if you've never been a part of it, if you haven't walked that journey before? If you've never been Indigenous and that hasn't been your story, how can you know exactly what our community wants and needs? So it's not only me entering that villain area where it's I know I have that power to be you're fucking up, what's going on? I want to see changes or else. But it's also being able to, because ever since I entered into DJing, I've never been I'm going to be a global DJ and I want to tour and I want to do all this. I just want to DJ so I could get free drink cards and free entry. That's why I was doing it, because I was I'm already out anyways, might as well get paid good money. But and that somehow turned into a career. I have no idea how that happened. But I think from my roots as a small kid, it's been the core of community. And my community has changed over time. If nobody didn't know, am not a queer person myself. I've been somebody who's grown up very, very lucky to have grown up from a very, very, very young age around queer people. And I guess one of the reasons why I wanted to be so forthcoming in making sure that I was doing right by my queer community is because not only did I see the greatness from the queer community, but it's I saw my uncle come back from nights bashed to a pulp. I've had family members being killed. I know that it isn't just all the glitter and the music and the fun and cute stuff. And it's something that I always want to reiterate, because it's like, I personally don't see myself as an ally, because I don't think I get to pick and choose if I am doing the right thing by someone else's community. If somebody tells me that I'm an ally, I'm like, great, but that's a continuous journey. It's not like I tick a couple boxes and it's like, I'm wanting you guys. No, I want to continuously doing right by people who is my family, is my community. It isn't just like we're cute little friends and we hang out. It's because I have young ones in my family that are queer and that are growing up. I want to make sure that when they grow up and they turn 18, 19, 20, they have people to go to who are going to help navigate them through their lives. That's it. And same with me as well. You know, I think about the idea of, you know, the great changes we want to make. They're not going to happen straight away. You know, I'm going to be making changes now that potentially, like, my grandkids are going to see. I feel like this is going to sound crazy. I feel like if we're trying to do things and make them quick happen straight away, I feel like they can fizzle out so quickly. And we saw that with the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, people wanted to be great allies to the Aboriginal and the Black community straight away. And what did we see from that? We saw a couple of squares. We saw people give money once or twice, show up to a rally once or twice. But there wasn't that continuous work after it to be like, okay, so how do you break down the racism that's within yourself? How do you ask your communities, your workplaces, your families to start looking at themselves and seeing how their structures are created and how they are, in turn, whether they're conscious or not, creating a system that's still oppressing and hurting and damaging these minority communities that we have out here. And see, I didn't even have to come early. I got all the words. But it's this idea, the whole thing is, I'm a community person. My role, I think, for the past couple of years and what I want to continue to make bigger is the opportunity that I have to grant other people opportunities. So when I got Sorbets, it wasn't about me making money. I know, like, for the past, like, last year, everybody was really angry that I didn't DJ, and I was like, they were trying to make me cut Mira's set shorter. And I was like, no. They were like, oh, but people would really like to see DJ. And I'm like, that's not what I put on here. I put Marasia on because I wanted to listen to that bitch DJ. This wasn't about me being the headliner or anything. And they argued with me backstage, and I was like, no. Oh, have a think about it. Okay, no. No. And it's like I got on the mic at the end, and I was like, not DJing, because you're still going to get out. But it's about creating opportunities, because at the end of the day, I feel like people, if they're trying to climb that ladder to success and they're doing that by themselves, not only is that lonely, but if you fall down, there's no one there to pick you up. If you fall down a bit further, you don't have your community there to back you up and make those steps that you're taking stronger. So it's about creating those opportunities to make sure that we can move as a community through that, get more power, get more money, get more space, get more recognition, more validation. And in return, I see that as becoming a way for not only our communities to be addressed and understood and empathized with far more, but it means that we're building up the people within our community stronger, because they know who they are, they know what they deserve, and they know if what they want is out there, they can get it.
Girl, you keep coming out with these bangers, girl. And what was the question?
The question is, like, what would you like? Which way would you like to grow your project, like House of Divine, or like your own individual practice? Like, say, like next year, what's something that you would like to see that would perhaps, like help us all grow, in the right direction, change that little issues that are going around.
Yes. I feel like from the first question you asked me in those 3 questions, the first thing in my head was that I actually don't want to grow Divine's image. Like, that was a thing in the very beginning to make us visible, but it's not even about the name or the house or like the power that we have. Like, it's just us within the community that really matters. And the way that I think for myself, what I can do to make it better is actually blurring the lines between community and institution. I think it's hard for institutions, especially if the power is mainly white and cis, to understand what we're going through because they're not here. They don't know what we're going through. They can only listen and try to help us and give us more autonomy. And that's what I've been trying to blur out. And I've been working with a lot of institutions in the past few years, and the question is always why? Why does it need to be like this? Why does it need to be like that? And I'm like, girl, we've been saying it for so many years, and the thing that's not getting through their heads is the whole thing, because they can't experience it. They don't know. So I have to kind of learn their way of understanding to get my point across. I'm writing them essays. I'm having, not for real, girl, I'm writing them essays, and I'm not going to say who it is, but it's just it's the biggest art center in Melbourne. Y'all Google that. And there's constant meetings every month about, why do you think you need to run this bowl here? And why do you think you need to do this with this amount of money? And I'm like, girl, I know. And they said yes to us in the beginning, but now they're getting scared. There's some level of white guilt of we're an institution, we're scared to be with y'all because we're afraid to do the wrong thing. And you being afraid to do the wrong thing is actually the wrong thing. You just need to listen and give us autonomy, and then we will do it for you. You know what I mean? And ballroom is such a self-sustaining culture. We fund each other. You know what I mean? You give a prize, for example, Mira Walk, Sex Siren, she gets a prize. At the next ball, she's going to use that money to fund either her house's training, to get her outfit right for the next ball, to fund other artists, to run the next event. We help each other out as a community. We just need the little push from the institution to give us a bit of coin so we can start it up. And after that, you can let us be. We good.
Thank you so much, everyone. Now, I just wanted to know if there's any questions from the audience. You can just raise your hand and I can pass on the mic.
Everyone, thank you. This was so moving and so powerful, especially as somebody who hasn't had a lot of exposure to this kind of community before. It's been so insightful listening to you all speak about it. And I can feel the warmth and the family come oozing out of the stage. It's insane. It's been so wholesome. Thank you, genuinely. My question for you all is, as somebody in the media kind of landscape, hearing you guys speak about your stories, they're all equally so important. How can somebody in the media landscape kind of respectfully share those stories share those stories in a way that is respectful and is still safe and makes you guys feel as though, as you said, you're not like circus animals and people aren't kind of gazing at you and people aren't putting you under a spotlight in that way, in a way that ultimately makes you feel comfortable as well.
Consent, firstly. There was photos from the Alexander Ball that were out, and it actually outed some of my family because you couldn't see surgical scars and things like that. And this is in big publications. So knowing that there is, consent is a huge thing. So if photos are being taken, especially amongst the trans community, that we go through the girls and the boys to know if these photos are okay, if they're dysphoric, or workers in the community. We can't be outing anyone. So I think it's very important to have these conversations, and that words are written right, that we're saying acknowledging the right people, spelling people's names correctly, not
minimum.
Yeah. But I mean, this literally just happened because it was racial profile, and then that's not the right person,
It's just a lot of C's: consent, communication, conversation. It's if you are gonna say that you wanted to have Miss Kiki, you need to talk to her about her life, her story, and exactly what she would want in that and how she would want to be perceived. It's not just about like, oh, you're amazing. I wanna write something about you, and then you show up at one of their events, say hello, and then decide to write an article. You need to get to know these people. I think with the like a lot of media, I don't think it even just specifically for queer BIPOC. Well, I think it's very, very, very important considering how much the media like demonizes our communities or others our communities. But it's if you are wanting to write something and make it be positive and respectful, the first thing you do is you introduce yourself and you tell exactly what your motives are. And then from there, you'll see if those people want to actually interact with you or not. If they want to interact with you, you've got to be with them on the whole journey of, this is what I want to talk about, what are things that you want to be included, what not to be included. Like you said, what images are appropriate, what aren't. And I think it's also being a big importance of it is actually, if you're talking as, just about a party or being a DJ, there is so much more that goes into that. People talk about, if you're buying an artwork that's like $3,000, you're not buying it just for them, just making it there. You're buying the thousands upon thousands of hours of them learning to paint and draw, to find what their style is, for them to find what they love and what they enjoy and to build their craft. That is the same exact thing when you're interacting with people. It's not just talking about how you put a house together, it's talking about the struggles that community faced, that they felt that they didn't have anywhere else, that they needed to create that for themselves. And, how hard that was to create that, what each individual person is feeling and how they're growing and how they're maturing. There is so much in there, and I think just having a one-off interview with somebody is not enough. It's got to be almost like a collaborative work. That's what it is.
And I think, before you even start conversing with these people who you want to work with, the first thing you need to do is figure out what your intentions are. Yeah. And it's honestly that. If you know why you're doing it, if it is not about you, then perfect. If you think that, oh my God, I'm having Savara, a trans person, on my little article, they're gonna love me because I'm so inclusive. If that's the way that you're thinking about it, girl, don't do it. Because it's not about you.
It's just about listening at the end of the day. Like, if someone is telling you their experiences and how they've grown up and, as a trans woman navigating the music industry, it's a lot sometimes. But when you, book somebody or in the journalistic sense, when you, approach somebody to interview them or have them an article or whatever, know your history. A lot of you're approaching a certain, diaspora or a certain community of people, you have to understand the language that surrounds that, also just understanding where those people come from as well, and having the right person speak about it as well. Don't just get somebody who's never had this experience before in their entire life and then talk about either being queer or being black or et cetera, et cetera. There's so much more than just, asking somebody, hey, can I ask you this? It's just doing the journalistic research, number one, that's it, just knowing and listening.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be an extra level of care. I say this because of another incident recently where my daughter was misgendered in the makeup chair of an interview that she's about to, speak about her story, her life. So it's not only do you need to be accountable for yourself and learning, but also those in the crew, those around, and there needs to be extra level of care and research and understanding when working with our community.
Is there any other questions? Okay.
It took 3 people to answer one question. I love that.
No, I love this.
Very thorough.
Person for everyone. I mean, the question was for everyone anyway. So, well, before we wrap this beautiful panel, if there's anything else that any of you wants to say, in general, like, please feel free. Any like last comments, last thoughts, anything like that?
I'll start. Move with love. Whatever you do, move with love. Love always wins at the end of the day. Make sure that you're doing this for yourself, but for other people. Put yourself first as well, because sometimes you need to put yourself first and take a break from that as well. And just do something different as well. You know, if you've done, there's only you in this world. You know, like that's it. You know, everyone else is taken. There's only you, so you might as well just do you the best you can do.
Mic drop.
That was really inspirational.
And on that note,
If it's not a, you know, you don't have to. It's only.
I feel so much
pressure. Oh my god, no, it's so fine. Like, I think, yeah, if anything, maybe like any like advice for either like allies that I think there's a few kind of like allies, or maybe newcomers,
Allies.
or
The ally
maybe
thing to do
future.
is to give up your money willingly without needing, you know, your name attached to anything or whatever. If you really about the cause, you would give it willingly. That's only if people are from big organisations here, because obviously you don't have your workplace floating above your head.
It's giving. If you love the cause, you don't need to pause. Ew, that's so young. Sorry, I'm fucking making rhymes in my head while everyone's talking. Like,
You're figuring out these raps?
But also, oh my god, I'm gonna talk forever. Like, for example, when we were speaking about spectators. So if you're, you know, coming to a ball, like there is a role of a spectator. You educate yourself again of the culture. Also, like give energy. Like while we're in the room, like, you know, learn the chants of the houses, learn who people are, learn when someone's being called for LSS, being like, yes, Mother Kiki, you know, like anything. Like you need to give energy and like not just be passive, and that's when it feels like a circus.
You have to add to the space. If you're not adding to the space in some way, then why are you here?
I'll do a serious one. We'll be serious. Something that I always talk about is challenging your comfortability. You know, when it comes to these things, my mother's always explained those types of things as, you know, these are human growing pains. There's got to be a little bit of uncomfortability because you're growing. That's supposed to be there. I know when you said before, you know, people are scared to be wrong. That's the worst thing that you could be. You know, if you're wrong, then you should be able to take accountability, make it right, and move forward. If somebody says that you've said the wrong thing, done the wrong thing, be like, great, thank you so much. I was unaware, or that was really thoughtless of me. I should be more thoughtful with my words. I will make sure that I'm going to be doing these things down the road and actually do them. Because I know that people feel a bit, oh, you know, like I want to do the right thing, but like I don't want to do a wrong foot out of place. It's like, that's not going to work. If everybody did that and worked forward with being so scared of making tiny little mistakes, we're not going to get anywhere. You know, I know that everyone here, whether that's got to do with the scene or just with personal life or whatever, we've all made stupid mistakes. I'm reckless.
Everybody has
I'm
those days.
so reckless.
We've
Seth
said
knows
some
me from
things.
like when I used to be a proper alcoholic. I was reckless. But it's like you can't learn from your mistakes if you're not making them in the first place. It's very, very easy. And, you know, we might seem really staunch and very like, but like we're actually quite understanding and loving people. There's a reason we have such a tight-knit community is because of the ferocity that we love and care for people. Did you like that? But, you know, it's not just, you know, what you see on the TV or whatever. Like, we fucking love hard. So we feel like you've got the right intentions and you're moving with purpose and you're doing the right thing, and, you know, you make a little mistake. We'll be there to tell you exactly what you've done wrong, but it's up to you to be like, okay, yep, amazing. I will be better and I will do better and actually do it. So.
But it's never it's never no shade. Like, it's no shade. It's just always just telling it like it is.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Bitch, you expect me to go after you? Like that?
You got something. I know you do. You got something.
I run. No, I'm good. I think you said it, girl. Everyone said it. It's giving, +1s to whatever you said.
Okay, well, thank you everyone that has come here today. Thank you so much to all the panelists. Please, big round of applause.
Wait, actually, there is one thing.
Yeah. Hi.
I'm just gonna do a shameless plug on my daughter's event. Because if you want to be a part of the scene and you want to be in and about it, come. Let's test that theory. All right? So it's called Escándalo. It's tonight at, where is this?
It's at
the
Loop
Loop
Bar.
Bar. Starting from 9 p.m., finishes at 3. Period. Yeah, we have artists like Angel, which is my my they them daughter son. We don't, yeah, child. Sorry. We have Kiara, who you saw on the stage before. We have Blue from the House of Silky performing, and we have Venus, the mother of the House of Dawn. Who else is there? Oh yeah, Nadi DJing. This is Nadi. That's it, yo. 9 o'clock.
Cute. Anyone else wants to plug anything? Please go for it. Nope. Good. Good.
Go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all good. That's all good. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. And just before we wrap up today, we have a little giveaway. So first of all, we have. Did you find out the numbers for the tickets? No. I'm going to say you get a ticket and a +1 for the Elizabeth show tonight, which actually has Soju Gang DJ in it as well. And, sorry?
I remembered.
Can I tell people? So, pretty much 10 minutes before this panel, basically, Sky called Steph, and Steph was like, "Yeah, how far away are you?" And then Sky was like, "Where?"
What?
So basically,
I don't need a warm up.
Yeah,
I'm a good.
No, you're amazing. Are you kidding me? Amazing. But yeah, it's like a really, really big show. Actually, it has like a music video premiere. It has Hani Machete. It has Graza, Franco Goso, Pillar Pro, June Jones. Soju Gang DJing, Loner DJ set. And we also, and DJ Georgia Mac as well, who was like obviously earlier on today. And we also have Kai CD and Kai t-shirt as well. And
Just turn around and whoever catches it.
Well, okay, was there anything else that you want to add to this prize pool that we have going on, by the way?
Pay the rent. We didn't speak about any of that, but if you've got means to, monthly pay the rent. We are on stolen land. I think it's not really understood the history of Aboriginal people, not only in Australia, but in this city. We are in Collingwood/Fitzroy. This is probably one of the hearts when it comes to Aboriginal revolution in the whole of Australia. So this is where the NAIDOC committee was first put together by Sir, oh no, I've forgotten. By Sir Charles Douglas. That doesn't sound right. I literally ran here. I'm off my head. But my great grandmother was actually the secretariat for it. But a lot of our community worldwide were pioneered to get the rights that we can from this very area. Douglas Nichols, remembered. So Douglas Nichols, it was these communities. Oh no, they're Marley's earrings. She got clip-on earrings. They did the trip up to Sydney to march. Top of that, a lot of our family members around here. The reason we talk about pay the rent or, paying reparations is whether or not people really understand that we had slavery here. We had our family members torn from their families, taken to homes, taught to be housemaids, not paid anything, sold off. Both of my great-great-grandmothers were put through that. Scarily enough, they were actually put in the same home in New South Wales. So my great-great-grandmother, Margaret Tucker, was taken up to Cootamundra Girls' Home, which is in New South Wales, country New South Wales. But also my mother's great-great-grandmother, who is Nanny Emma Penrith Coombs, was also taken up there as well. So it's really scary that they kind of share the same space. But yeah, you know, that's what we're paying for. It's not only about being on stolen land. It's about there are people who have been through generations of trauma that we've had to continuously carry and live by and still exist and thrive in. And those little things do help, you know, with funerals or putting together community events, or just to make sure that we've got little pieces of our culture and our history still with us. So pay the motherfucking rent.
And what's the best way for everyone here to, you know, like do this kind of...
So we've obviously got the pay the rent fund that exists here, but there are also things like Jadua Foundation, who I push really, really hard. That's my cousin April Day's foundation that she started to help families who have sadly lost family members to a Black Death in custody. There's also a couple, if you actually research, there's a couple of different ones. We have there's the Aboriginal Legal Service that's here that helps do pro bono services for community members. We have VACA, I'm trying to remember all these acronyms. We've got like our healthcare centre, the Aboriginal Healthcare Centre here in Fitzroy. We've got that's connected up with actually being our community centre here in this area. I'm not from out here. So I'm from Dandenong. But there are so many different ways that you can do that. And that will be exponentially helpful when it comes to making sure we've got community events, making sure that our kids can get through school, that they can have lunches and recesses. We do all these sort of programs. Sports, making sure kids got sports shoes, looking after our elders. We have elder programs. We have men's groups and women's groups. Everything to try to help our community not only stay together but stay here, because a lot of shit been going down lately and we've been losing a lot of family members too. So
I think
yes.
maybe what we can do with like Music Victoria as well is like send out an email to everyone who came to the conference and send out with like the links as well, so everyone, you know, like get an email with all the different links so that people can be informed as well. So definitely send me all the links, or I can do the research as well, but we'll do that as well. Thank you so much. So I I kind of decided for the sort of like the prize to kind of like ask a question, and then whoever can answer it first, you know, wins. But then I kind of was like, I don't actually know what question I want to ask. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't. Oh gosh, why am I? Do we want to do that?
No, let's all come up with really good questions.
Wait.
Maybe something they should have learned today.
Yeah, something they should have learned today.
Oh, fuck.
Who was the founding ballroom house of Australia? Were you listening?
Yeah.
Correct.
You get the little t-shirt, you get a little CD, and we'll send you an email later with a ticket as well. Okay. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming to the conference. On the Saturday, tomorrow, there is the panels on mental health from the behind-the-scenes perspective. So we have a panel with like sound engineers, artist managers, and we also have a songwriting sort of like post-lockdown blues. So it's about like how artists sort of learn to write differently after the lockdowns. We have a keynote by Jen Clower and everything like that. You can go on the website to find out more about it. And yeah, if you want to come tomorrow, please do so. But otherwise, it's been so nice. And thank you so, so much for your energy today. Really appreciate it. One more time, let's give it up for this beautiful panel. And thank you so much.
Thank you all again for coming. Sorry we took so long and just kept chatting, but, you know, it was so amazing to hear all those stories. Thank you for being so generous with your time, and thank you all for coming. Really hope to see you back again tomorrow for more. Have a great night.